who the most powerful bloodline families are and what they're doing, talk about what's happening in the Bilderberg meeting, talk about ETs or anything of that stuff, it's very hard to talk about because it's so hard to know about.
You do need facts.
It's not, honestly, it's not that hard.
I don't know any Rockefellers. I don't know any Morgan.
This is fear-mongering.
No,
I don't know them.
You've got a question?
I can't talk about people I don't know.
Gentleman over here has got a question.
Well, I kind of believe that we're all living in separate, like, kind of dimensions, if you like. We're all, I have my path, you have your path. Sometimes we cross, sometimes we... But that allows for everything to be true. Because if I believe something strongly enough, I'll find the path that goes towards it. So if you really believe something like that, yeah, you create it. Yeah. And we can all create it. So if I go that way and you all decide to go towards the way of the Zeitgeist movement or something, then we're going to end up on different paths. But
do you believe in, like, that you have a guide? Do you believe, like, you have a guide?
The gentleman in the orange, you had your hand up first.
So it needs to feed off of what other people are saying. I just still concentrated on the fact that I believe that there are a few totally manipulating the system as much as possible and creating the wars. And we need to know about them in order to not perpetuate it.
Yeah, we need to just be aware.
We don't need another world war to, like, prove it.
Gentleman over there has got a question.
Is it important that these people are doing things, or is it about you and me, this unknown power that we don't? I've never perceived that in my reality. So I don't know that. I just personally believe it's about me and it's about you and it's about us.
What we can do.
Being, yes, trying to understand and then living that.
But obviously there are organisations that are going against our wishes every day, like bailing out the banks. I mean, why is that happening? We don't want that. We don't want to give them anyway. Why are we engaged in illegal wars?
Do you understand what that means? Like, if you didn't bail out the banks, like, do you realise what would happen to society?
Yeah, we'd be free of the leeches.
You would kill each other. St. Paul's would explode.
He is right in a way, but we would need something to replace it.
That's no excuse for allowing it to happen, to carry on though. And also, to take Iceland as an example, Iceland said no, and in the end their own bank said to them, well, actually we can cover 85% of our own losses ourselves. They were just fleecing them. The banks are fleecing us and having us on.
They've been doing it forever.
Yeah, but they're stepping up the game. And as part of stepping up the game is to get rid of the wealth of the middle classes and to kill us off. And that's going on. And so if you just think, oh, I shouldn't buy Chinese products, you're missing the point. We're being killed by the banking system and the government is working for them. They are total wankers. That's what we should be focusing on.
Okay, question over here.
Can I just say something? The banking system is nothing, right? The banking system is humans, right?
Yeah, but humans participate in it, so they go to war to get their wages.
But you are a human as well, so I could say that you are part of the problem as well. If we think that humans are the problem, then the problem is solved because we're all going to die and that's it. No problem solved. Like, the thing is that we can't separate, we can't think about like others, like if they are different than us. Otherwise, we're part of the problem because the reason we have what we have now is because of our divisions. It's because we think the guilt, first of all, we believe in blame. Blame is a childish concept because blame doesn't solve anything. We need to find the root of the problems and then tackle that root. Yeah, There's no point of blaming things. So, and banks don't mean anything. Banks are the people that work there, is the director. If you would meet the head of a bank, you would see that all he wants is to provide for his kids the same way you do, you know,
Not
and
the
you
same
empathize
way,
with
no.
them. If you talk about people without really understand that there are people like the banks, the families, like if there are some kind of aliens, you are not able to empathize with them. And the problem we have in the world is that people are not able to empathize with each other because of these artificial
No,
divisions.
but I
And
understand what you're
Okay, if we
saying.
could hear your solutions, if we could hear the solutions and then discuss about these solutions.
Okay, you get regulatory bodies that really do their job. You prosecute people that are corrupt.
That's
No,
corruption.
Yes, you prosecute
Hands up,
people that
please.
are corrupt. You put them in jail. You get rid of all the speculative gambling type of banking activity. You just have bog standard boring banks. You could read it. No, I've got honestly. I'm not just kind of making this stuff up. I've got friends that are economists that have got an organisation called positivemoney.org.uk. We totally go into how money is created, how we could totally rewrite the system where us as British people own the money we use. It's not loaned into existence out of thin air.
What's positive money?
Positivemoney.org.uk.
Yeah,
There's loads of solutions
still
because
human
people
beings.
don't understand the problem.
how can you avoid those people to be corrupted as well?
Sorry,
It's still just people.
this gentleman over
No,
here
the thing
speaking.
is us being aware of the problem. That's my case. It's not that I think bankers are not human and they're different to me. I think that people don't understand the nature of the problem, and that's why everyone just blithely thinks I have to take a loan out to get money to do this, to do this. They don't.
But people
They
is
don't.
you. Do you understand the nature of the problem?
These guys over here have been waiting.
Were you waiting? Yeah.
I think most people agree that all of these solutions that you suggested would be effective, but or in some way, well, they would help. They wouldn't necessarily solve all the problems, but there doesn't seem to be any foreseeable way to actually affect those solutions. To actually,
There is. We can all take our money out of the banks.
How
They would
do
start
we do
collapsing.
that?
You just go to the bank and you say,
No,
"Oh,
how do we get everyone to do it?
6%.
Kai's got a question.
6%.
yeah, they would collapse.
Question over
We'd
here.
start using them.
A few points. One, I don't think that it's healthy for us to start regulating and policing people in the way that, like, you're suggesting, like, and that from our conditioning that we can't, like,
Then they'll
sort
just
of like
abuse us. if we
after
don't
tomorrow.
stand up to ourselves.
After tomorrow, I don't think that, like, if we had the solution that people and that, like, we could even have the availability to broadcast it and get it globally or nationally known or something, that people would go for it because of the conditioning. It takes you have to change the whole environment that people live in to, like, change your mindset, and the only way you can do that is starting from an example and following in it. You can't just go, okay, like, this is the rule, this is my impression of what we should do, and you guys should do it because it works for me, but it might not work for
There's
everybody
a lot
else.
of really intelligent academics worked in the industry and outside of the industry that know what the problem is and know how to fix it. It's just the general public don't understand it.
Isn't that part of the problem with it?
Yeah, it's totally the
Not
problem.
part of the problem with the solution.
The gentleman over here would like to
The
speak.
solution is education.
Can I just say, because I think we're having a point here, and I think that what we need to realize, you know, like we don't need to realize it, but like it would be useful to realize is that everyone is is playing the same game, right? So there's no differentiation between as long as there's the role, anyone will feel it. So you are here because you are, like, filling a certain role, but if you would have different conditioning, you could be the people that rule the banks the same as easily as you are the people that are against the bank. So in order to achieve a balance, right, we need to understand we're all the same. We're not, if we fight other humans, we're fighting ourselves. There's no other way around it.
But you can only
Just a minute, I've got something I'd like to add. If you have all this regulation in order to keep the greedy bankers in check, they can just easily bribe the regulators.
No, you need to stop
And
them
even if we get rid of a few greedy bankers, the system's set up so that
But that's like
more
saying-
greedy bankers will just follow
That's
them.
like saying you might as well just accept defeat and get
No.
trampled to death.
And it also
No,
changes
it's-
Change the game.
They have to change the whole system.
You can, but by becoming conscious.
Well, like Jack Fresco said, in a civilized world, there is no prison. There is no prison, there is no jail. Which means you don't have that option to lock up these people who deviate from the rule. So how do you...
Yeah, but that's not now, is it? I'm just talking about now.
I think
But you're just like satisfying the issue. Like it's not. If the education is right, like you can be an economist, but if your education is based on the monetary system that doesn't actually exist, and that we're trying to change,
It does exist.
but it doesn't really.
It
doesn't
really.
really.
Got a question over here.
No, not everyone.
I think instead of fighting and arguing with each other, what we should do going forward is accept that we all want different things. Like, and we have to get groups of people. If you need a group of people to do that, then as many. If people want to join that movement, then they can. And we need as many people to just accept that what is happening now isn't working, and they need to join a system of a different kind. It doesn't really matter what that system is, because either those systems will survive or they'll fail. And if they fail, then they were obsolete. They survive. As long as a few of them survive, like the Zeitgeist movement, I want to be primitive. Like you want to sort out the banking system. As long as enough of them work, we'll all have a way of living.
I just want to agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. And what I feel is that it's more important for us to agree with the problem than to agree with the solution, because the solution that will work, no one knows. All we can is to try different things, and whatever works, as long as we are prepared to accept that what we think might not happen and deal with it, then whatever works. So as long as we agree with the problem, right, there's no point on trying to guess the future and discuss a solution. Then no one will know if it will happen.
Everyone's got a different problem, though.
Isn't the father problem inequality?
Yeah.
Well, so what's the problem for you?
It's a bit broad. Like it's a bit broad. Like how do you remove inequality if you want to be able to work for your comfort? Like, do you know what I mean? If you want to be able to have an outlet to provide certain things for a certain style of living, there's always going to be people who don't and people who want and people who like.
Yeah, you would
Anton would like to
like when everyone's got the same. I'm just sorry, man. But just at least an equality for having our needs, our human needs met. So it's a landmark.
Anton.
Thinking about problems, then something deeper than inequality is probably a kind of selfishness that we don't recognise as no longer necessary. So it's more sort of selfishness that leads to inequality.
But isn't that one of the things?
Individualism, that's the thing.
Inequality, selfishness, is it inequality?
Well,
no, because it's you doing it to yourself. You know, inequality is somebody else pushing it onto you.
Is that what Mark Bowles said? It's about
selfishness is you creating it and then whinging about it.
Kai would like to speak.
I believe that selfishness is created from inequality. That actually, like people's inequalities, then go, okay, so they've got it better than I have. So you're gonna feel like you've got the bad deal there. And that's where I think that sort of actually comes from. A lot of the sort of emotions and feelings that we have come from the environment that we've created and the way that we live, and that it's actually changing our behaviour patterns, which will change our mindsets. So, talking about inequality, if we're looking at what we're trying to solve, equality needs to be what we're trying to aim for, and I think that that's more important than going, okay, we need to not be selfish and things like this. Selfishness comes from being
design it out the system.
Well, yeah, if you've got an abundance of everything, there's no need to be selfish. You've got everything you need. What else? What do you need? And you've got it. There's no need for it.
Can we agree that the problem is scarcity then? If we would solve scarcity, we would solve the rest.
No.
Why not?
It's not scarcity.
So what would happen if there were no scarcity? Can you tell me?
No, I think it's not scarcity.
Huma's got something she'd like to say.
I think I'm an ecologist, so my viewpoint comes slightly different. But I think the biggest problem that I'm an ecologist. I think the fundamental problem with humankind at the moment and civilization is our separation from the natural world. And if people actually realised that they were just one as part of everything else, then maybe we could find a balance. There's this constant conversation about inequality between what? Between each other or between nature? Because actually nature has been going on a lot longer than we have, and actually we should respect that more than we respect ourselves, because it's nature that's actually allowed us to become a being. And that's, I mean, I'm not a follower of Zeitgeist, I'll be honest, because this resource-based economy to me is just, again, it's people who are generally in this kind of movement often have an aversity towards religion, and they have that aversity because religion bases man and Jesus Christ as this ultimate being, and they place it as an ultimate. But I don't think, personally, I don't have an aversion to religion. I think religion is an important part of our human civilization and our structure if you look at it in a positive way. But most people within these kind of changes or transition movements, if you want to call them that, have this aversion to religion, whereas what we need to do is have a respect for our environment and a respect for nature, and realise that we're just a tiny part of the whole thing, rather than thinking about each other all the time. Everything I've heard today, that's why I left actually earlier on, is all about us, it's all about people, and that's not what it's about. I'm not saying we should all follow Gaia, but we need, in order to survive, we require everything else.
There's a question over here, and then over to you.
I'd agree, and personally I don't have an aversion to religion. I'm just not religious, I'm just not interested in it, and the Zeitgeist movement does include all religions. There's no reason not to. What's the last point you were making? You were saying we should...
I think my fundamental point is the fact that people think they're somehow superior. If we go around with this superior attitude, then we should have the knowledge to know that we're not actually anything different from all the animals and plants that we live with.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, unless we've got a paranoia and some insecurity, it's any insecurity that makes people need to be sitting in a gold chair to make them feel powerful and they're queen or something.
Yeah,
we don't need to feel fear for nature, whereas you'll find that most people are fearful of nature, and so they put themselves at a higher plane than nature and think that they can control it, and that's bullshit.
I'll just finish up my point if I can. Living with nature I totally agree with. I don't see how that can't symbiotically at the same time mean taking care of ourselves and feeding children.
No, neither do I. But you need to think about where is your focus in the whole of this. You know, the whole focus is all about maintaining humankind, which we need to do. But actually, the only way you can do it is to respect nature. And I think,
but isn't every other species living in harmony with nature, and we're not?
Yes.
So solving the problem is solving our problem.
No, because I mean, for example, the Zeitgeist movement. From my understanding, I mean, I've only seen the videos and I haven't really got involved in it.
Okay.
But it has this element of a resource-based economy where they will build new cities and we will do things which are all resource-based. And based on that scenario, everything else will be okay. But that's not how things work. You need to build and sustain yourself based on nature. You kind of take the approach that you can build something and everything else will be okay, but it can't, because we're actually part of that whole cycle.
I don't quite understand what we're... Sorry, I don't want to dominate someone else say something.
Well, no, because the problem with religion is that we decided that we were superior. So religion had to go through people, and God is a person, and he had a child, and that's Jesus. And
yeah, but that's the same message in the Zeitgeist movement, is that we are superior and resource-based.
Nature. That is the religion. That's the only religion that actually counts. And I guess where we deviated and where it started to get negative is where we needed to personify with humanity that divineness, that none of us really understand, and whatever, it's this thing that you are, this thing you feel, whatever.
It's just about controlling.
But that's it. It needs, because it needs to be put in a box and it needs to come with a face, and that person has to have a name.
Yeah, and it gives
history,
us the
and
right to
story.
put animals in cages when they don't need to be in cages, and it gives us the right to
exactly.
to
That's what I mean.
fence
Exactly.
things
It makes
and
us.
animals.
It makes it all about us.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
and that's, I would say, from an outsider, is what concerns me most about the Zeitgeist movement, because there is no one involved in the Zeitgeist movement who's fundamentally...
Have you watched Tron, The Reality of Me?
No.
Yeah, okay. So you need to watch like the actual, it's 12 hours.
No, that's nice.
And it's basically... it's basically the thing that then spawns Zeitgeist, you know what I mean? It's just the reality of the situation. So it's just talking about where we are today and who we are and what we're learning and what we're... It's you know, it's not actually saying that this is going on or whatever, it's just more of the situation that we find ourselves in. And they do talk about religion, they talk about the connection, they talk about the... But they remove all personification. They remove all this thing that, you know, like, we need to put it in a box so that we think that we understand it. When we can't.
Well, I think personally, we've been manipulated in terms of what actually the things about religion. I mean, even the simple question of Noah's Ark.
Well, no, the point
Noah's story was a very simple question that you need to preserve and look after what you've got if there was an event that caused destruction, whereas people don't see it like that. And if you read the Bible, Noah ends up just being a drunk and getting raped by his own daughter, so it just ends up being vile. But, you know, the whole...
The lady in yellow, would like to add something?
Thank you. Everything's made of energy, and the highest vibrational energy is love, and we're all love. We've just been diluted by ego, and that is what separates us all. And if you start stripping away all the ego, then we'll all be one big love all over again.
And then there's nothing actually to There's actually no nitpicking because you just do it yourself inside you, and if everyone does it,
we all, and it'll have a rippling effect, like we said before, that it will all help each other.
I don't see why you, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, you think there'd be animals in cages in a resource-based economy scenario?
No, she said that religion justified the way it was done, or whatever, personification, whatever.
Society makes it okay to do that. I mean, I work at London Zoo, so I know. Society makes it okay. We go and look at...
I think it's the opposite, actually.
No, Zeitgeist assumes by creating a scenario that is a resource-based economy for people, that everything else will be okay.
Why are you saying this is for people?
No, but that's not what Zeitgeist advocates. I think that, like, if you actually watch the movies, what they want is to live in a sustainable manner.
Yeah. For themselves.
No, because sustainable for the planet, meaning that we can't separate ourselves from the rest of the planet.
Well, I can tell you from the Zeitgeist movies that I've seen, I think they've mentioned the word biodiversity about 3 times. So where nature comes into the whole concept.
That's more than the current system.
I've noticed that, like, from the kind of like the proposed kind of like project that they want to create, the Venus project, that like these new environments that are being created look like it's just an example of something that's just going to destroy habitats, and it's like not it, or to create all these things, like we've got to like mine and grow and create the use energy to create this like new energy like resource that's like being sort of, it's like so new, like that, like it's like got a few videos out there that it's not being used at the moment as in a large scale, and we don't even know if it's actually available to make a large scale version of it yet. But that these actually, the system that they're creating, like these like circular cities and stuff, don't look like, for the environment, that like for the planet, there's like hillsides, there's like by the sea, like you can't stop the sea from like changing the like the ground, like the weathering and things like this. Like you build like a city, like there's only going to be limited locations where you can put these cities. So you're building a hierarchy there straight away by saying we can only put them in certain places. They can't go on ley lines. They can't go near the sea because like corrosion of the like near the sea. That like things are going to be made out of like it looks very much space age like concrete in like metal, which is like all industrialized processes.
It's just blueprints.
Yeah,
they are just blueprints.
That's the point, it's to condense everyone, that you don't have the freedom to just live everywhere if you want to live in the city. You know, you don't get to just go and buy that park and just put up a tent and live there. Well, you can, but, you know... like
usurp the land, Sorry.
I don't know, I don't really agree with that, because we can build a city where we want. We could even build a floating city.
Yeah, well, that's a have floating cities. That was the thing of that.
I think
just to
if you watch the, I would like to add. I think your points are right. There's something that needs to be updated in the proposals around the Venus project, because I think as very much our society now is based on a state of technology as was understood in the past, which was kind of an industrial based idea. We're starting to learn now that if we work with nature, we can achieve huge amounts more with very little energy. I've spoken to lots of people here about permaculture type stuff. That a fantastic example of that. Maybe we could show it at some point. Called Greening the Desert. This guy went out to the middle of this salted, totally arid desert in Jordan. He cut swales. He cut sort of curving ditches. He planted the right kind of species and stuff like that. He put lots of but he put a mixture of species is the important point. And by doing that, those species created a miniature ecosystem. They started creating soil in the middle of the desert. They started desalinating, purifying the water, and doing everything without requiring energy, without really requiring technology. Now, I think the Venus project very much condones the idea of using the best knowledge we have now to achieve a balance between humankind and nature. And there is a task to be done here, because it doesn't seem to matter how many times you tell people that one of the aims of the Venus project is about biodiversity and balance with nature. They just don't. That really needs to be hammered home more, because people just...
But that's because people only know Zeitgeist.
And because the designs are quite out of...
Activism.
The Venus project designs are quite out of date.
There's not even a single green roof in the Venus project. You know, green roofs are just like just
there's solar panels.
The whole building is made of solar panels.
That's why there's no green roof.
Can I say something? I think that it's important to look at the Venus project. It's not trying to guess the future again, right? All we need to know is what the next step is. Yeah. Because we are speculating about the future that none of us will ever see. Yeah. So there's no point. We're just wasting time if we're just like saying, oh, but I saw an image of something that didn't look like it is this. It doesn't matter. I mean, like, to be honest, what's going to happen next, what we can influence is the next step. So if we all agree that we all can do, I'm just talking, I'm talking about myself, not anyone else. But if it's possible that we can go outside and try to do whatever we can to reduce scarcity, meaning that we stop feeding those cycles that divide us, right? We stop having these fake enemies being like political parties, football clubs, religions, whatever divides us. Just stop feeding it. I don't care about religion. I don't care about football clubs, and I don't care about countries. Yeah. So whatever this is feeding the cycle, just stop doing it and see what happens. Maybe we'll generate a biodiverse city. Maybe we'll generate less scarcity. Maybe we'll generate more peace. Because we can see that there are different countries, they have different levels of peace. And we can see that scarcity is more or less correlated with that. So let's try to reduce scarcity, see what happens. But the problem is...
Yeah, see you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. We're really friendly of you. See you. My point is just that if we just do whatever we
feel it's right. So we try to be the change we want to see in the world, right? And then don't try to guess what that is going to generate. Don't try to speculate that the city is going to be like this or like that, because no one knows. Jack Frisco doesn't know. He's just trying to inspire people. But those are all like fictions. You know, let's not act upon fictions. Let's act upon whatever will happen that no one knows what will be. So let's take the first step, because that's the scientific method. We take the first step, which is self-evident now. Everyone can see that people need to be more equal, that people need to be, we need to start using like human needs as a base of whatever we're going to do next, right? So let's try to do that, and then we'll see what's going to happen. Let's not waste time guessing things, because, you know, like generating fear out of the unknown is what drove us to this place that we are in the first place. Let's not concentrate on the unknown. Let's concentrate on what we know. And what we know is that countries that have more equality system, less scarcity, live better. So let's try all live better. Let's try all like do our part.
What's the level?
You had a question?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a statement. I think the way I see it, we're kind of split up in a way into, you know, Zeitgeist movement and kind of primitive, which is what I see it. But that to me correlates with being a city kid or being a country kid. It's the same kind of idea. And I think I think there's space for both cities and countryside. You just have to kind of decide where you want to live. And what's the thing? There was something fairly useful. Yeah, being primitive. I think that we can all do that tomorrow. If that, and after I get evicted from the place I'm living now, we're going to go and live in the woods. And we're just going to go and live a primitive lifestyle. For us, that's no problem. That's going to be easy. But for you guys, it's going to be a hell of a lot of work for doing the Zeitgeist movement, for doing the Venus project. That's going to be some serious talking, serious planning, and good luck with it. I hope to help you guys. But I think you need to decide kind of what you want to be, whether you want to be a city kid or a country kid.
Or just a human being?
Yeah. Yeah, but where do you live as a human being?
I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever it works. You try your thing, I try mine. Whatever it works, we'll all adopt it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't think we need a title of I'm the Zeitgeist movement. I think what we need is an umbrella of people that have a similar objective. They may be coming from different angles, but the only way you can reach a goal is by learning from other people, rather than being this focused, weird, you know, whatever. So you saying city or countryside, I think that's bullshit. I think you can apply things in any kind of scenario, and you know, I'm a city kid. I've lived in the city, and we're planning to go out and live in the hills, and I'm not terrified of the prospects of not being, well, I am, because I won't be able to get my cigarettes, but you know, I'm not completely terrified of being separated from the city. I think you just need to learn off other people and stop trying to segregate yourself or pigeonhole yourself into a movement. Or there's lots of people that are following the same cause, and we'll separate. We should all be in the same room.
Also, something that can be said about that is, it's not trying to segregate yourself into a movement. It's just that things need titles sometimes for a period of time. It's a project. You know, I don't care about the word Zeitgeist movement. I care about what it represents. I wholeheartedly support it. But in fact, let's be honest, it's all I really care about at the moment, because I see it as being so and making so much sense. Now, you know, following that, if your logic is sound, you know, that is for a reason. Everything should have a reason attached to it. And I don't think sometimes that's another form of categorization, by thinking that, you know, if you do choose to represent something that is a bad thing, it doesn't have to be.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just sort of saying, like, today, we hope, didn't we? We hope to contact people who are part of the permaculture organisation, people who are part of the transition movement. I'd hope to get a friend of mine who is currently developing sustainable cities in Arabian countries and to give you an insight into how, you know, the Venus Project, okay, it didn't work out.
He is
but
really
there is lots of
building
people who are
sustainable cities
yeah,
now.
you know, there's massive projects going on. Gary Grant. Gary Grant. Not Cary Grant, Gary Grant.
What's the one that's just been
I can't.
Mazda? Check out Mazda.
Oh, Mazda, yeah, I've seen the advert.
So, I mean, there's lots of people that are out there, and we all actually have the same goal. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, you know, sex ourselves into different groups, but we need to come together more because I think everybody's got lots of ideas. And
we just need to stop talking. That's the problem, is we use words, and words are just shit.
Well, yeah, people need to see stuff, yeah.
I agree. I personally agree with
that.
I personally agree with Boomer.
People follow actions, not words.
Yeah, exactly.
I think all of us being, the fact that we're all here today, instead of doing shitty desk jobs or watching X Factor or football, is a really good.
X Factor on?
Oh, what are we doing here?
I think it's a really good step in the right direction, and I think we need to be unified because the people who, if there are any people that are against us, they're definitely unified, and I think we definitely need to keep in touch and see what we can achieve.
Yeah, and also I think that what I love about this Zeitgeist movement thing is that I think it is giving me all those things that you're talking about we should desire. Like Martin, I don't know how to say his name, Marcin Jakubowski. He's the open source ecology dude who invented something called LifeTrack. He's following a resource-based economy model. You know, when people saw that he wasn't part of the Zeitgeist movement, but he was doing something in tandem which has a similar goal, like you're talking about. You know, he was in his competition, everyone voted for it, made him win it, boom. He goes off, he doesn't have to now declare himself a Zeitgeist or anything like that. But I think that is why this thing's...
We don't understand that
That's
Zeitgeist in
willpower,
itself isn't actually a thing in itself, it's part of something else. So that's just... It's just the police, the ones that make the flyers for the... You know what I mean? Like, it's not... There's a whole actual other world connected to that. You've got to watch Trump. Until you can sit through those 12 hours, sit through the 12 hours of text-to-speech talking.
I'll fly to
It's not even a
Australia.
person.
Absolutely environment. I'll fly to Australia.
I love that, but it's still computer.
The reality of me.
I don't like the computerized voice.
It's amazing. It's so good because
it's amazing, but it's a computer lady voice.
It takes the depth of words away. It's just a machine saying blah, 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 blah. There's no.
I know what you mean.
There's no like imagine like this person going the tone or the.
No, it's like Noam Chomsky. It's sterile conversation style works because there's no emotion in it.
It's just information.
And you can listen to it while you're jogging.
Judgment. There's no. But it does go for 12 hours.
Sorry, what did you say it was called again? The reality.
Tron. So it's like Tron, but with an M.
Reality.
The reality of me.
Of me.
Yeah.
So you just
it's
type
just
it on YouTube, yeah?
It's just the reality of being a human being in this.
Yeah.
12-hour documentary.
You have to just watch clips of it every day.
It's all in different parts.
Okay, cool.
And then he gets on this light cycle and he's tearing down this track made of light. Oh no, sorry, wrong movie.
Don't watch the new one.
I did. I did, and then I went, why did I do that?
So we maybe go for a little break.
Another one. Just get from a
Would
break.
everyone like to go for a break?
We've been here all this time. Okay.
Really good to meet you all, though. You're a really good bunch of people.
Yeah, we should do this more often.
Yeah, I like it. That's the thing. We come
has
from
everyone
Cardiff.
agreed that we would like
go
to
to
go on a
Zeitgeist
break?
Cardiff meetings, and it's been the same experience. Like suddenly you're surrounded by people who are switched on and focused on what matters, and you know it's happening all over the world. So it's only going to get bigger.
We usually try to discuss important things like bags, shoes, and makeup, things like that. But like
money,
politics, tax, things like that. Things that matter.
I just joined Mark Boyle's website the other night, just for the love of it, which is the free economy stuff. And I put the flag in it, and there was like 17,000 members within 10 miles.
It's really popular.
People who've signed up to this idea that they can work together without money being involved. And I suddenly thought, that's a lot of people who could potentially work together. I think possibly engaging more with free economy is a really good idea.
So, can we all agree that we don't need money?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
But we need what money can buy.
So who agrees that we need money?
What, love?
So everyone agrees we don't
You
need money.
might need it to some level, but like,
Okay.
there's got to be an exchange of something. Like, there's got to be something. Otherwise, it's like, well, what? I don't have anything to give you, and you have nothing to give me. I don't want anything from you.
If you
so
created
I'll
a
just go
box,
there and you stay there.
you can from Star Trek, you created a machine where you could say, "I want a hot chocolate," and you created it. Why would you need money?
No,
think you mean the
not for that. You don't need
interaction.
money for a hot chocolate or for food but maybe if you want to go to Mars, you'll have to pay for it.
But
then you
not
have the
money.
spaceship that's attached to the machine.
No, that's
that
what I mean.
produces
Like,
the
you know,
coffee.
once all the necessities are taken care of.
Are you planning to buy a spaceship?
No, I just mean that once all the necessities are taken care of. Like, you also have to understand that if we had all been primitive all this time, there's a whole richness of life that we would never have got to experience. So
The concept
point,
of giving
but
and
it's that-
taking
Yeah,
cannot
yeah,
go
that's
away.
it,
It's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
part
No,
of
but that
life.
doesn't-
So
like,
we
the level
need
of-
money
like,
for
once
that.
it goes past the
it
level of
require light and money,
choice, I
but
guess.
he said didn't say money. He said something like money.
yes, there's an exchange of something.
Yeah.
Something to say that I've earned to be able to go on the spaceship to the moon. Like,
come on.
If we could go back to the hands when people want to speak, just keep it civilized. Okay, so
I think Mark said earlier on, like, I agree with what he said, is that, like, the idea of, like, almost like gift economy, like, that your, what was it, that, what people see you as, like, basically, like, you get a, like,
Reputation.
Yeah, reputation, that's it, yeah, a reputation, and, like, that's what basically, like, people, like, will, like, understand you for, like, they won't need you to sort of, like, make a barter in exchange, because they know that, like, you deserve it because you've put out so much to everybody else, and that, like, you're gonna at some point, like, return a favour, like, openly.
Well, if I want to go out and get fucked up on drugs, like, is that the community that has to pay for it, or is that something that
But maybe
I
you
want?
wouldn't want to.
That is maybe. But I'm just saying, like, when there's, you have to also understand personal desires and personal, like,
We maybe
things.
wouldn't
You can't,
have them personal desires
like,
anymore.
no, but I think that that's the problem why people don't care, because what they see is that at the end, everyone's going to be living in a monastery, and, you know, people don't want that, so they don't want to create that reality.
Yeah,
They
that's
want to be able to
speculation.
fucking listen to Lady Gaga, and you know what I mean?
We have bigger fish
You
to
have
fry.
to-
Gentleman over
that's
here would
a
like to
part
add
of life.
something.
You can't just delete it just because it doesn't go with the thing.
In answer to that, you say, you know, being heavily on drugs, like, is that
I
something
didn't
that
say
you're
that. I said if I want to go out and do this extracurricular thing, that is
That's exactly what he's
no, that is separate
There is no question.
from the needs and, you know, everyday
So you need to
food,
buy-
shelter, you know.
I have known heroin addicts that have been the most generous giving people I've met in my life.
That's not my point.
No, it kind of goes in with your point. The point is that somebody can still be very generous and develop a reputation for being generous, even if even if they have drug habit. I think that
I'm talking about the concept of the civilization, though. That there's a level of.
But you need to
Go
always
over here would like to say one
I
thing.
just want to say, like, nothing's actually addictive.
You need to tie the behaviours you're describing with the reasons.
No, I just think that things that are to benefit you personally, just for yourself, that have no impact on everyone else, that is something for you to seek and to source yourself. Like, it's not, I don't see that somebody in my community, needs to go and fucking dry my bud plant because I want to be able to smoke, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just using drugs because it's a separate thing, you know what I mean? It's like,
it's real.
It's a
real
not a
consideration.
need, but, you know.
But Bar's got something he'd like to add.
Yeah.
It's not addictive.
And it's a personal thing, like it's a...
Psychological, isn't it? The addiction.
Nah, if you don't have willpower, then
But Bar's
you'll
got
just keep
something.
thinking it's addictive.
You can't get away from everyone else and say that I want to do this, and then because no one else wants to do it, it would not impact anyone else. At the end of the day, we are all one. and we are all part of the same thing.
I've been taking drugs for years, mate. That means that you have to, if we're all one.
Yeah, no.
It's not a separate entity to society.
Somehow I could get...
No, but like, okay, so what about, let's use sex then as a different thing. Somebody who doesn't like having sex and somebody who likes having sex. We use sex. So let's say you want to sit in your room and fucking whatever. Does the community have to provide you with pornography? Or is that something that you yourself... No, but do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
There's our basic needs and then there's our wants.
Yeah, so, okay, you've got food, you've got shelter, your kids are fed, you know, you're happy, cool, right. You want to go and do something of your own volition.
But why?
There should be something there.
There would be no more banking, no more jobs. We'd have all the time in the world.
No, because we were asking whether we should get rid of money. So it's like, well, okay, you need to get rid of this, like, necessity.
Free porn.
Free porn, free drugs, free sex, whatever you want to get.
But why? You need to ask yourself, why would people want to do that? You know, because you're forgetting the why. You're just trying to analyze the future with present
that's
values.
the negative things about drugs, man. Like people living primitively, taking drugs, like it's not anything that is separate to being human. It's the experience of the limits of your mind, of your internal journey.
If you didn't know drugs existed, would you want to have it?
Well, maybe because I got hungry and I ate a mushroom and then I got off my face, like, and I was like, wow, that was amazing. I'm like, go back. What is that?
Well,
that's how it happened.
Yeah, but do you think the chances of someone eating a magic mushroom by mistake are very high in nature?
Maybe not now, since we know what they look like, and there's none left because we would have gone already.
So there you go.
But once upon a time, it did happen. Yes.
Yeah, but if you don't know about drugs, you don't want drugs, right? You are forgetting the conditioning that brought you to the state that you want actually drugs, right? Because if you start questioning things, you get to the root of conditioning.
It's just an alternate experience, man. You can meditate. How is that any different?
No, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that you are
state of consciousness. That's
everything. There's two paths.
Yeah, sure. But what I'm saying is that you're relying on assumptions already. So you're justifying some assumptions. What other assumptions?
No,
so
I was just making the point that we shouldn't get rid of maybe money itself, but there needs to be some sort of a.
But I still don't understand why.
Sorry. Do you still have your question? And then.
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what you're trying.
Did you have your hand up first? Or? Okay.
I think what you're trying to say is that you think you need money for things that aren't a requirement, and actually people outside won't want to get involved in this.
It's not that they don't want to. It's not
they
their
won't
responsibility.
because But if somebody wants a pair of Nike trainers. And they hear about the ideal that we're creating, they think they can't get their pair of Nike trainers and they'll go, fuck that, I'm not getting involved. But actually you don't require money to get that, and there's no reason why you can't have drugs or you can't have sex if you want to pay for it or whatever.
Exactly.
Because there shouldn't be any different in the society that you're describing.
It
just wouldn't be with a piece of paper, it would be with something else, or it might be a gift, I don't know, but I think that's what you're trying. I think that's what you're trying to do.
Well, like, you know what I mean?
You just need to make sure that the advert isn't that you're going to live on potatoes and carrots and you will grow them yourself.
But as a community, we look after each person's natural needs, like, everybody's eating, clothes, whatever, and then for the other things in life, well, off you go, like, you're free, you know what I mean?
I don't see other things in life than basic needs.
I think we're trying to just come up with some sort of like ideas of like solutions right now, and I don't think that that's like even something that we need to be concentrating on. Like actually, like we're like saying like, do you think that we need money was a question like that. Seems like we're trying to come to some solution where I think like it's like I think the more important question is like, can we live without money? Like, and if we can, why do we need the money?
Well, we lived without money
so if we can all
for a while.
So more than a while.
Yeah. So I think that answers the question.
The guy over there's got a question.
Money
and
was
then
invented.
The guy over there's got a question, and then if we can all afterwards answer.
We're going to leave in a minute. I'd just like to say, if everyone wants, they can add me on Facebook.
Yeah, what page are you talking about? The Bristol Zeitgeist movement?
Yeah, the one for the event today.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Where I found
Are you on there?
Yeah, just add me on.
What's your name? Something.
Sure. I've got everyone's email addresses here, so I'm going to send out everyone's email addresses to everyone else, so we can all keep in contact. Cause sorry. Yeah, if you'd like to add your name and email to that, please.
That there is actually nothing right or wrong.
Yes.
Everything is like whatever people do. Yeah. And everyone's been saying that all day.
Yeah, sure. Right and wrong is a childish concept, I agree.
They all say we're one, and they all say like, do your own.
It's just negative and positive actions.
Right, right. So.
Yeah, safe.
Easy, bro.
Take care, man.
Yeah, I agree. Right or wrong is.
So cheers, guys.
Doesn't exist.
Take care. Got to keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers, mate.
Take care.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice bandana hat combination.
Cheers, man.
It's wicked.
Okay, so now if we could all, if we could answer Kai's original question. Do you want to remind us of the question?
Yeah, it's more a statement than a question, really. I was going to why I don't understand why we were talking about questions more, like other stuff on like trying to come to solutions when we can't. I don't think we're going to come to any solutions like right now. Like,
we don't even know how it's going to crumble yet.
So it's instead of making this discussion maybe like either keep repeating itself or going on and on and on, like by asking questions like, do you think we need money? Like, I think that might kind of like drag on. Like, I think a lot of people come here because they might have seen these Zeitgeist films, or because they like heard about this, and that instead of saying, do you think we need money, like it's more interesting saying like, do you think we can live without money? Seeing that there's already an example there that we've actually done it for like quite a long time as a species, and I think that it's quite easy that we can do it again.
I mean, there was always trade, and money did used to have a value. Do you know what I mean? There was a point where it was, I would really like your chicken. Can I have your cow? Like, you know what I mean? There was an actual exchange or something.
But that's
so,
when
no, it's just that it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and people got greedy, and they wanted to keep their cow but have your chicken as well. So
it's only now again.
A cow's worth 5 chickens.
No, but that's what I mean. It's just human corruption. Like, until you can like remove.
There's a question over here.
No, I think the thing with that is that the difference between barter and money. Barter, if I trade a chicken for a chicken, then that's a fair deal, and we can both agree on that.
Why would you do that?
It's a bit pointless. Well, if we trade two things of equal value, then that's a fair deal. And the equal value is the amount of effort that I've had to put in to get that thing. Like a lump of gold is equal to value to a chicken because of the effort I had to put in to get that. Whereas money can be highly manipulated to be one-sided. In fact, everything that we trade in this society is less than the value of the money we're giving. So bartering is much more equal and fair, whereas money can be manipulated to be one-sided.
But money came from bartering, so it's just the end result.
Yeah, but we could go back to bartering or back to a bartering system.
So we can go over to you and then over to you afterwards.
Me?
Yeah.
What I want to say, the root of both money and bartering, I think, actually comes down to land and territory, and resources, and this is obviously the root of the idea of having a global resource system. Is that, you know, at the end of the day, how can you say, if I stand on a piece of land, put a fence around it, and I say, right, this is mine now, and everything that comes off this piece of land now belongs to me, and on the basis of the fact I will fight anybody who tries to step on a piece of land. That is the construction of the whole money, barter and stuff like that. Once you take that away and say, no, so we're just animals, we're actually just apes wandering around the countryside, that's the reality of our situation. And so on top of that, all you can really barter or trade with is what you can add to what's there already. And you know, something based on that.
I think that's what he says.
So
about removing sovereignty.
Over to the lady in blue.
I actually don't bloody well know what I've walked into, so I don't know anything about the Zeitgeist movement or anything, right? But I think I've got an idea about what you're talking about, but I've got no prior knowledge. I've not watched any films, I've not read any of the literature. But
you don't need to. You
no,
just need your books.
Yeah. But I think I agree. I think there's something about what's the point of that question, like can we exist without money? That is a pointless question to me. Because I think if you're here, you're obviously thinking you don't need it, so don't ask that question because that's wasted energy. I think it's about the meaning you ascribe to what you've got. So, okay, you've got chicken, you want someone else's chicken because it's a better colour, you like the colour more, so you want to swap the chicken. So, it's not about, the value is what you ascribe to it. I don't really know the point I'm making, but yeah, I think you need to do it by setting an example. So I think sitting around in a room, chasing your tail, does God exist? Why are we asking the question? I think it's a bit pointless. I think you need to get out there and actually do it and live it and then tell people and demonstrate it.
Agreed.
Okay, but what we're pushing is the idea of a resource-based economy being solutions.
What does that mean? Sorry, what does that mean?
Yeah, good question. The fact that we money's created out of debt and interest is out of creating this sort of financial trap, mixed with the fact that
I don't understand that. I don't understand what that means, an internal financial trap. I'm not being awkward, but no, I don't,
If money's created out of debt and then interest is added, it's got to be paid back with interest. The amount that's been made, plus the interest, that keeps increasing. You're creating an amount that can never be paid back. So the Federal Reserve Bank already, the source of the money, they've got us in, the whole world, essentially, in the eternal financial trap through this fractional banking reserve system that we operate in. I only know this because I've seen the Zeitgeist, but I'm not acting on. Mixed out with the fact that we're over-consuming about 50%, because the resources are 1.5 planets every year, 32 by 2030. Mixed with the fact that technological unemployment is going to start coming in more and more, and automating jobs wherever they can, because companies have to compete for market share. It means we are fucked.
Well, some people are, cool.
Yeah, whereas the amount that aren't is going to keep increasing all the time. So the idea is, people are looking at what's the root cause of problems in the world, and the problem is inequality. If we make all the Earth's resources common heritage for all the Earth's people, that's the mission statement. You can slash crime by 99.5% when almost crime is poverty related, blah, 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 blah.
Money related.
And build new cities as a test models, first of all, to see whether if we provide people's needs, whether they actually agree and right. And the social science studies so far seems to indicate that. But watch Zeitgeist moving forward.
Is that downstairs, that thing they're doing on the end?
It's the one in the TV, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So sorry, I'm talking from a position of ignorance. But
no, this is
no, that's absolutely wonderful, actually.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, it's all about going back to the basics. Isn't it? It's like people create these artificial models and they act upon those models and they forget what the original intent of those models was. So basically, money was invented to facilitate trades. Trades only exist because of scarcity. But now, we don't care about scarcity anymore. People don't care about scarcity anymore. So basically, whenever the lack of scarcity affects money, we create artificial scarcity so money can continue to exist. So that's why we have wars, because every time there's what is a crisis? A crisis is when I don't have to buy anything. If I don't need to buy a new mobile phone or a new laptop or anything, then you have an economic crisis because money will stop having relevance. So whenever everyone is happy, you have an economic crisis. Right? So basically,
which makes people unhappy.
So to feed the cycle over again. So what we generate with this cyclic consumption is waste, and waste is going to kill us all. So basically, is that what is good for the economy is not good for humans. We need to understand that.
Who's at the top of the tray?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
The monkeys.
That's it. No, that's the
We all like that. We don't know, and it's probably a waste of time trying to find
Well, I don't think
Well,
no
no,
one
but
is.
no,
to be
it
honest.
is.
It's a bit, it's
Yeah.
a sort of full, it's a...
We are victims of
It's
our
who's waiting for Godot sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there's an interview with in Zeitgeist with John Perkins, who was an economic hitman. He admits it. He wrote a book about it, and he says from his experience, it's not like a conspiracy theory; it's a corporatocracy.
Yeah,
So they've got a very cosy relationship with governments, and just the goal is to maximise profit regardless.
It's just money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the game.
So it's the profit motive running away with itself.
Everyone agrees with the money, so everyone's just like scratching each other's back.
Profit
and
is
if somebody fucks the other one over, the others all, you know what I mean? Like
We've created this. We've created this new species called a corporation, which is an invention of our imagination, which is a sort of fake person. And we've said that it should behave in a completely amoral way, that it should only behave to try and maximise profits, and that people shouldn't be considered in that equation. And we have another mechanism, which is to do with governments and legal systems, that's supposed to add the morality back. Yes. But what we forget is the corporations have become more powerful than the governments ever were. Well, so the amorality is reigning over the top of the morality. So we've become victims of our own creation. Yeah, well, governments are corporations. They literally are registered corporations. The House of Lords is a corporation. Members of Parliament is a corporation. United Kingdom Corporation Limited is a corporation. You're a corporation. I'm a corporation. We're registered possessions of United Kingdom Corporation.
The problem is when we start justifying things in a way that we say that the system would work if it wasn't for corruption, when the system and corruption are exactly the same thing. It's the same thing as saying cancer wouldn't be that bad if it wouldn't kill me. Of course, but it does kill me. So we can't just dissociate the consequences of the system itself. You know? So the problem is not the consequences of the system. The problem is the system itself. So we can't say that.
It's us. It's us. We're just those.
No, we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves either.
It's a story we've created and then we believe it.
We're just born into it.
Yeah, but well, I think that there are several, you know, like I believe that there's a lot of like luck in the on the path, on the evolutionary path that we chose. So some things could be a lot different if it was for a small detail here and there. So this is not deterministic. I mean, like, the thing is that we need to deal with what's happening as being unlucky for all of us. You know, there's no enemies. It's everyone is suffering from the same thing.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So if there's actually all of these problems, all of these things don't actually exist. It's just me perceiving what you said I should look at. It's not that thing itself isn't there.
What do you mean?
It's a story.
Like saying that inequality doesn't exist. You think that the people in fucking wherever, some poor country right now are going, oh my God, I'm just so unequal, oh God.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Oh.
It exists in your brain. You know, like the thing is that we can't separate humans from...
No, but that's what we see that they're going through, but actually she's like washing her, and worrying about her kids, and do you know what I mean? Like, there is no inequality, they're alive.
Hang on. I've seen plenty of videos for people in poor countries who tell you that they feel sad because of the conditions they live in.
Yeah, but that's only because they're looking at us, because we're there filming them with our cameras.
That's because they're starving.
Dressed all...
But there are people living without the basic human rights.
But I agree with you. I agree with you. It's all about comparison.
Of course there are. But those people would not be in that situation if it wasn't for us. Do you know what I mean? Well, it's only because we went to their country and completely raped their resources.
Not us. The system.
It's us, man. We live in this country. Do you go to the bank to get your money out of the ATM? It's you. You're living it. You went to buy your clothes from the shop. You're living it.
Okay, I should ask you what the point of this realisation is.
Well, where does that go? I mean, I want to know about movement and motion.
Yeah, so the point is
to
stop thinking about it, to stop talking about it, and to just do it. To just be honest, and to just be present, and to look at people with respect. You don't need everyone to look at everyone equally, as long as you do it.
Yeah. Can I raise a point about words?
Sorry, I didn't know that I had a question.
I just have a question to put to people in general. I think that everybody here is very conscious of the problems that exist and possible solutions that have been identified. And my question really is, what do you propose that we do to make this transition happen?
Nothing.
Talk to as much people as possible. As many.
Okay, I can maybe come up with an idea about that. What I think what we're here to discuss is, and I'll put the proposal forward that there is no way to fix this within carrying on doing the same thing that we're doing now, pursuing economic growth and having a debt-based money system like that will never fix this problem. There needs to be a new way of approaching things. So you're saying, what is that new way of approaching things? My proposal is something like a cooperativism, whereby, and I don't think people are going to have much of a choice about this because the global supply chains will collapse because of energy supply problems. That's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
People will need to work together, form communities, and what my hope is that those communities will then join up into a bigger global community.
So you're talking about raising consciousness.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it's all about.
Sorry.
I think the worst. Sorry.
Sorry, go over.
Oh, it's just a brief add-on to what you were saying. Remember what Mark Boyle was saying about things can't be global? I think that we can do something a bit more global without the need for like mass transportation. If you look back to the Silk Road, does anybody know about the Silk Road, where silk was traded from China to Russia, just along one road, just traded over and over again, things like that. Sorry, that was important.
Logan?
I think the worst thing that could happen is if the global supply chain collapses.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It can't happen, in my opinion. We need a strategy to prevent it.
It's already happened in so many other countries, so why wouldn't it happen to us?
It's going to happen very soon, probably by the end of this year. There'll be severe
What do you mean then? What would be the actual effect? What do you mean by the global supply chain collapsing?
I mean, for example, Mike, do you know Mike Rupert from CollapseNet?
Yeah.
Me and Ola were speaking about this earlier, and he put an announcement out very recently about the fact that the markets at the moment have not accounted for the fact that the disaster in Japan is going to create a huge dip in global supply chain, because Japan creates electronic components, especially automotive components, for companies that are used by corporations across the entire planet. Now, they may be able to start rebuilding those things, but you can't take an advanced chip factory which is based in Japan and start making the same chip somewhere else overnight. It just doesn't happen. So suddenly what you're finding is factories are closing all over the world in all kinds of different sectors because they just don't have the parts, because they all came from Japan.
Well,
and you can't switch it to another factory.
Like what about food, supply chain of food?
That's a different question.
But it's very interconnected.
Yeah, it's connected.
Yeah. But it's a similar kind of idea, and there was a brilliant economist who I think was based in, he was based in South America somewhere. He was based in a country that made some of the finest butter in the world, and he went to his local shop and he found that butter was being imported from New Zealand, and that's what he was buying in his shop. And he suddenly changed his entire idea of economics and said, this concept of transporting butter from the other side of the planet to a country that makes the best butter in the world is absolutely insane. And it's undeniable that oil prices can only go up from now on, while the pressure's on.
Everything's made with oil. Everything.
Yes.
So why would you be in favour though of chaos before?
I'm not saying I'm in favour of it. I'm saying that it's coming.
Or why would you not want to prevent then inevitable chaos?
I would like to prevent it, but what would make more sense is just have a more efficient system to begin with, and not have to feed this enormously inefficient system we have now. I'm not in favour of it. It's bad.
But
it's not going to be
something
good.
from the ground up is much more difficult than transitioning and migrating from an existing
I'll say the opposite. It's much easier to design a special system than it is to try and fix a broken one.
Okay, so over to you.
I think of all the staff that are in positions who are maintaining the supply chain, that collapses, how are you going to get those people back in the positions?
Everything dies.
Sorry, over to
created.
What if you were to say that the most successful human innovation comes from necessity? So the times that you make your best ideas and creations is when you really need to do so.
Necessity is a mother of invention.
It is. So maybe it needs to collapse before we're able to look around us and say, well, what can we do to make it start again?
We're actually so separated.
Well,
bring back.
That's actually the worst thing is for it to carry on like it is.
Again,
That's
just
the worst.
coming down, because I think maybe we need that so that we can start again and build it up.
The majority of the
don't
world's
agree.
in
I
poverty.
think chaos is just suicide.
Sorry, the lady in the blue would like to speak.
Sorry.
Go on.
You said inevitable chaos. Why would you try and prevent that?
Sorry?
You said, why would you try and prevent inevitable chaos? No, why wouldn't you try and prevent inevitable chaos?
If you have the foresight, if you see that something's going to collapse, why wouldn't you want to try and prevent it and make a smooth transition?
Yeah, if the inherent structure is based on something that is fundamentally flawed and fucked, how on earth, excuse my language, how on earth can you rectify it? It's like at the moment my body is completely fucked. So I'm having to start at my feet and work upwards. I've tried doing the bits in between and it doesn't work. So I don't think, I mean, yeah, I'm really fearful of all this sort of chaos and it going back to sort of Lord of the Flies and all that sort of stuff. But maybe that's what needs to happen, because you cannot modify inherently corrupt, abusive
I'm not
system.
talking about modification. Like my background is information systems and computer systems. If you're bringing in a new computer system, you run it in parallel with the old system. Gradually migrate across and mitigate any risk of any downtime.
But I mean, that's easy.
Yeah,
it's
mine
a box.
too.
It's everything's
If you have the choice,
strategy,
good.
planet, resources,
That's
implement
how
it.
do you plan for something you don't understand the concept
If you're going to wait for
of?
something to collapse, it's going to be chaos.
Do you understand all the complexities
But
of
it's
the
chaos
universe of
We need
life?
to understand it.
No, but
I don't understand it.
None of us do. As a
But these are
collective,
the
we
questions and the strategies we need to come up with. And the answer is before it collapses.
I think the answer is, well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transition now, we're doing what we're doing. And whether it collapses or we save it before it collapses is out of our hands.
I agree with it. Oh, sorry. To be fair, if this all collapses, there's no chance for Zeitgeist movement. The Zeitgeist movement is completely dependent on our society. So I think it's dependent on a transition. It can't spring from nothing. If there aren't like incredibly skilled, incredibly intensive microchip companies out there making amazing microchips, you'll never be able to make a city that relies on that.
The Zeitgeist movement is the promotion of the resource-based economy idea. If things collapse...
No, sorry, I meant the Venus Project, not the Zeitgeist.
Okay.
Right, sorry. But yeah, there was another thing, but that's all I can think of.
Well, nevertheless, I think it's the same. Like, if things collapse, then the idea is that if enough people know about an alternative, which to this point, until this came along, I haven't known it, and I don't think many people around me have either. So the idea is that people will have something to turn to, and then as long as the people have the skills in their head and they can get their hands on the resources, you can adopt that model.
Yeah.
Well, I think I should quickly qualify that. When the current economic system will experience a serious shock. This is certainly what Mike Rupert says. There's a big hole in production. There's all this debt which is based on being paid off from growth. It's not going to be growth. There's going to be a downturn. There's going to be panic. There's a real risk, actually, things carried on the same, because the corruption and the outright theft by enormous finance institutions, the longer that is allowed to carry on, the more powerful, the more theft, the more corruption there will be. There has to be a shock of some kind at some point. It's either got to be now, it's going to be further down the line when things are worse. There must be a shock. It will not be smooth without there being some kind of wake-up call. So that's a good side, and perhaps that will be the start of things, of creating a parallel system. So one will be declining, and we need to build another one as it goes along. If this one stays flat, it won't get
I've seen people
replaced.
suggest he makes bad predictions.
Sorry, over to...
Is the third world so much on the brink of collapse as we are? Like, or is that just something because of our stature? Like, is that...
They may do better.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So that means that all of our bullshit doesn't actually exist. Like the reality is.
But they will have less oppression, hopefully, by the
what
West.
I mean. Like for you, something that's a collapse for them is like, oh. Do you know what I mean? So that's your view, like but for them, they've been waiting for this for centuries.
Your shit is
you know what I mean? Like So how do you deny that for them, just because you want to keep your bank account? Not you, but you know, just because we want to be able to go to the ATM, or we want to be able to. So everything's dependent on our conditioning. It doesn't like one more thing. How is it not already over when they make these big deals about bailing out Portugal and fucking Ireland when they have a quarter of the debt that we do? How is that not already finished? And they kick up such a big stink. Oh my God, we're fucked, we're right.
Bailouts are happening by organisations that are already bankrupt.
Yeah, but I
know.
How
can they bail out anything?
No, because that's how the economy grows. They create money from loans. You go and borrow money, they've got 10 grand, but they'll create 10
Look
grand.
At the newspaper, what you'll see is inflation, 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 inflation of every country in the US, in the EU, in the UK, in China, in India, and everywhere, because they're just printing money based on absolutely nothing else, ever increasing.
Portugal, especially.
And then they start selling real assets to pay for the gibberish made up.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yes, but it's all about like stealing. Go for it.
I think my point's kind of past, actually. I just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit what we define as collapse when we're talking about this issue, because I kind of have a feeling that maybe this word is not doing justice, that we're all understanding exactly the same thing. Because I'm seeing your points, and my point isn't opposed to yours. In fact, I do agree with you. And
it's the debt growth model.
Money will be gone.
Will collapse.
Yeah. It's collapsed.
Well, specifically that method.
But that's happened. We're there.
It's the cycle of debt and the promise of growth to pay it off will collapse. It can't cover.
So the IMF or whoever is printing money and loaning it is loaning it on the condition there's going to be growth. And July this summer, potentially there will be massive corporations releasing poor results, which are going to make the markets contract and people will pull their money out, and it means no growth, and it means then the countries which have been bailed out can't really repay those debts, or will get more money from investments because there won't be growth, which may in turn then have a domino effect.
But growth is credit.
Sorry, over to
in this system, growth is credit. It's loans. That's growth. So
it's part of it.
Savings damage GDP. This is something I found out very recently. If you save money, it screws up GDP.
Yeah, that's right.
If you borrow money, it raises GDP.
Well,
if
GDP
if you don't destroy
grows to fix loan debt by borrowing.
Yeah, if you go and borrow £1,000, they won't give you their £1,000. They will print you £1,000 from nowhere, which you have to pay interest on. So now all of a sudden we've got £2,000 plus a bit of interest coming.
Yeah. Can I say something? I think we are missing it a little bit of the point. I think we are overcomplicating things because I think in reality is a lot easier than we are making it to be. I think that because I think the original question was that what are we going to do? What are we doing daily in our lives when you get out of here in practice, right? I think that like money and trade needs, it all comes from scarcity, right? And the problem is that progress should mean reducing scarcity, right? So when me, by myself, I can produce food for thousands of people just because of progress, because of technology, that should reduce scarcity for everyone, and it's not doing it, right? Because we're applying the solutions to a problem that doesn't necessarily need to exist anymore. So we're creating virtually the solution. Okay. So my point is that nothing is that complicated anymore. All we need to do, for example, what I in terms of actions, what I want to do next is that I want to support a project that is like kind of a community energy. So just a community gets together and gets a solar panel and starts getting their energy out of the grid completely, and starts like fuel that energy into producing localized food, so no more transportation costs in food and stuff like this. So get yourself out of the system. Don't play the game, because the game is going to self-destroy. Everyone can see that. So just don't play it. Go outside, and if there's alternatives, the thing is that people are surprised that other people can't really like follow. It's so self-evident. Why just don't everyone follow the Zeitgeist movement? Because that's not how change works. Change don't happen with words. People don't follow words. People want to see alternatives right there. If they see a food coming from a different place than they are used to, they will search for it. They will embrace it. But if, like, no one can eat words, we're just spreading words, that's not an alternative. It doesn't really mean anything.
They don't mean the same to me as they do to you. So
that's why this, that's why the current system is not threatened by Zeitgeist in any way, because we're not the real alternative. So if we really want to make a difference, just don't play the game. Find ways of not feeding the cycle, and the cycle would eventually vanish without anything happening. Because if you would forgive all the debt of the entire world, what would happen? Nothing. This is all in our head. What if you just stop, like most of our fictions, like if they would stop existing, nothing would happen in the real world. So let's stop acting upon our fictions and start just like seeing whatever the feedback will be of our actions.
I think I forgot.
Sorry.
No, I think I forgot because as I was thinking it, you were saying it.
Oh.
I think, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's good about when we started having meetings in Bristol. Actually, I would probably in the watershed. I probably spoke more than most other people, and I used to say, "I've come here because it's like my group therapy." I thought I need someone who will listen to my like babbling gibberish and actually understand what the hell I'm on about. So thank you very much, you guys, for listening to all that.
But that's all words are good for anybody. It's not,
not
convincing anyone of anything.
I'm sorry, I don't know, what's your name? Carlos. The amazing thing about this situation, this massive global impending meltdown that we're talking about, is that it is an entirely imaginary problem, and nothing will change in any real respect other than that the management system that we're using at the moment to decide what to do will be fucked up. So we'll have to take on board ourselves actions to do it. Now, what I advise people to do is to prepare for that. It may not be as bad as what's coming along, but the general advice is make sure you've got some food and some water and start learning about how to look after yourself and learning about how growing food and stuff like that, and none of that is a bad thing to know about anyway. And know people around you, make friends with people around you, keep close relationships, know what they can do, and be available to them to help each other out. That's the future. That's the transition.
And what's amazing is that that's how poor civilizations have always
Yeah.
lived. That's the thing.
And it's
always
more
been
efficient, it's
like-
cheaper
Yeah.
to do that.
Go back to basics. Words, yeah, words. Actions are much louder than words. We know this, but I think that what words are good for are planting a seed. Like you have to have a certain amount of words for people to come together to start something. Say like the Venus Project, and then the Venus Project is the seed. So like.
Yeah, but if people don't believe you, it doesn't matter what word you use.
Well, I mean, how many people is it going to take to do the Venus Project? 100,000 maybe, all in one place maybe, and they've got having more than 100,000 people. Do it. Half a million. Wow. I don't know.
Going back to what you just said, I fundamentally really agree with this. I mean, as I suppose way of living, I do try and relate to people in terms of what I can give them freely and what they give me without sort of paying them, but like in exchange of help, or whatever. But you made a point which I don't know about economics. I've never studied it. I don't understand. I don't think I understand it. But you said start preparing now. Put aside food. Get water. Now, to my mind, doesn't that create its own little economy? So that basically, if you're one of the chosen few with your stuff in the cellar, you're going to be really desirable, aren't you? I mean, you know, people are going to want to know you because it's like he's got his stuff in the cellar and I ain't. So you've created, that philosophy is actually like, do you know what I mean? Look after yourself.
There's a very interesting, there's two very interesting aspects to economics, which is that economics are driven by exactly by the behaviour and the ideas that people have that are in it. It's not in any way a science at all. It's pure psychology.
What I'm saying is, aren't you doing the very thing that you're trying to stop?
Yeah, he did actually say though, and learn how to grow your own food.
Yeah, I
at
get
the end of that conversation. I think that was
food's relatively cheap now. Buy some now. The likelihood is it's going to get very expensive soon. So just
grow your own. No. But the point
but long term, you can't buy enough food now long term. So learn about how food production works and make friends with a farmer. It's a very good idea. Make friends with people who've got lots of land. And work out how you can work together.
Ownership.
I kid you not. That is a really very good idea.
No, instinctively, I've been doing that all my life. Instinctively, no one's ever taught me to do that. That's just what I have done. But and I've also done the other thing, which is put something by. I've always done that.
Right.
But
and it's something that got lost by.
But isn't?
By
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Can he translate for me? Because
I understand exactly what he's saying.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I've got an answer. Can I say it? What he's saying is a contingency plan for the system we've got now, not the solution.
Yeah, no.
But, okay, but is that paradoxical in that you're using the same technique?
No, because you've got to survive in the system.
No, please, look after yourself.
What?
You don't have to survive.
Please, look after yourself. Be aware that there may be a problem. So the chance favours the prepared mind. If you don't survive, none of this matters anyway. So
I wasn't getting highly philosophical.
I totally see what you're saying though. About,
you're going to be one of the sort of chosen few, aren't you? You know, this group could potentially, I mean, you know, if you look at it, if you really exaggerate it, if we all go away now and put stuff in the cellar and that behind the wall, you know, my mum used to do this bizarre thing about putting food in a wardrobe, because in case there was a rainy day. But if you magnify that, then you're making the supply scarce, so there's more panic.
Right. Although, it's time to show her the mind control ray. She knows enough now. Show her the mind control ray. I'm only kidding. We're the chosen few with the mind control rate.
You've got to do what you can to survive, haven't you?
Yeah.
So that's doing what you can to survive, but it's not what you prefer. You prefer a resource-based economy.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
I think a better thing to be able to survive is just learn about how to survive in nature.
Yeah.
Because that, having that.
Yeah.
Like if you have all this stuff,
yeah,
a very limited supply of stuff. If you have all the knowledge, you can give that away freely.
Yeah.
You're right. It's a matter of timescales, and there is a risk that by the end of this year there'll be serious food price hikes and other kind of supply chain type problems. So what I have heard, and I do a lot of reading about this kind of stuff, is that is quite likely by the end of this year. It will probably start around the summer. It will hit the UK by the end of the year. You might want to take some contingency plans in terms of making sure you have some basic things, just in case. Is all I'm saying.
We don't like each other. People hate each other. They really do.
And one of the most important components of that is making friends with people helping each other out.
You know, when you were saying words, it's very true. An ounce of action is worth a ton of theory. So you can make loads and loads of theories, but you do just a little bit of action, that sets an example that everyone sees, oh, this is possible, I can do this, rather than, oh, it's just, I don't know. When you see an example, it makes so much difference. So him saying, you know, learn how to do it, he's sharing an idea, and he's open to everyone learning this idea. Like, everyone should learn how to do it so that everyone is okay. He's not saying I want to be okay at the cost of everyone else.
I think it was the way it was. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely get. I got caught up in the detail because
It's fair enough. He just walked into this.
Yeah, I don't know why the hell I am.
Can I ask? So, how did you end up here then? I think. Well, for me personally, it's great to have you here because you don't know what the hell we're on about. So now I can see. What sort of
I thought I was coming to buy new clothes, actually. Like the Zeitgeist. I'm a real person. I consume like you cannot believe. Like it's going out of fashion, but
it is going out of fashion.
It is going out. Yeah.
Couldn't resist that one. Sorry.
There's another thing we're learning by being here. We're learning how to talk to each other because we're learning politeness. We're learning how to raise our hands before we speak. And
I don't know about that very much.
You know, the thing is, I don't like
that's how you brainwash children.
I just want to speak. But the problem is there are too many people here. And if everyone speaks at the same time, there will be no communication.
Well, the louder
of 60 people.
Only the loudest get to speak rather than the most intelligent or the ones with the best.
Half of communication is about listening. 50% of communication is listening, 50% is speaking. If you just speak all the time, you won't listen at all. And then you
but
will
a lot of action comes from conviction. So if you don't really have any conviction, like if you don't,
then there will be total chaos if everyone is totally convinced about themselves.
But anyway, back to your point. It's a good one. The point is, things like this are like a microcosm of a big issue, like learning how to get on with each other and listen to each other. And in the end, you might need to put your hand up at first bit and give it. If you all come to the same meeting 4 weeks in a row, and fourth time you might find you've got a natural flow of it. That's pretty much how it's happened in Cardiff anyway, because we've been doing this for a while.
How many of you do there tend to be?
It varies. Probably had about 70 people come through the door in total.
Yes, it's just me and
one point we were getting 20 a lot. Yeah, now it's just me and him. We're planning a mutiny against them too. And I'm the best. Fuck you all.
Yeah, he is the best. He's the best. I already conceded, but only after I got kicked away from. He's violent.
Anyway,
so growing food and storing cans in the cupboard, like that's the contingency option, I guess. Plan B. Plan A would be for
Plan D. Okay,
well,
because I can think about two more
and so on. So it's called A and B at the moment. So Plan A, I guess, then would be a nice smooth transition into a resource-based economy.
But to bail out the banks. With what?
Well, no.
It doesn't matter to banks.
So, like, I see this as a global, unanimous effort. And before that can happen, we need critical mass.
No, we don't.
This is my opinion.
What's
we need critical mass. We need to have, it's essentially democracy.
Enough people.
We need enough people in favour of this for this to happen. So if there's 8 billion people or so, we need another...
Specifically when a certain portion of people agree, that idea then spreads very quickly amongst everybody else.
Yeah,
sure. We can't even agree here, and we are just a few of us. You know, like that's the new.
Okay.
That's the fiction.
So the first thing, well, do you need critical mass? Put a number on it. My personal number is we need 4 billion or so. That's the first point.
Like you
second
like
point.
1 billion.
Second point
people
is
can't agree on.
Yeah, you might need
if the plan B is a smooth transition into a resource-based economy, we need a strategy. We need a plan. So they're the 2 key factors that we need to have happening right now within the Zeitgeist movement, which isn't being told.
No,
what we need is there's no plan. You can't plan for something you can't see.
You don't plan?
How can we disseminate information amongst 4 billion people?
Yeah.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we need a sensational we need immediates and saying something like Julian Assange, WikiLeaks type thing. We need to get on to mainstream media.
Okay, so what?
And Jacques Fresco is of the same opinion. 3 months mainstream, we'll have our critical mass.
So what's your suggestion?
I don't know. I don't know.
But critical mass
They will never
of
happen.
people like you, like
we need
me.
globally. We need big awareness.
But you are not agreeing.
It will never happen because the media is run by the
lady
money.
in the blue likes
They've no other choice but
Take the money away, the media's not there.
The lady in the blue likes
Yeah.
He doesn't know where the hell she is, yeah. I don't really do technology. I've just about got onto Hotmail, so I can't really get into all this. I like that. I like pencils, but you have to sharpen them, which is a bit of a pain. I think the plan is everybody in this room, if they're up for it, should lead by example, take personal responsibility, spread the word, stand up and be counted, all that sort of stuff. I can't really engage with kind of, you know, contact 28 million people in the works. It's like that, you know, I live in Bristol. Yeah, I know, I'm being facetious. The point I'm making is you can do a little bit, and all those little bits add up, but start with yourself, take personal responsibility.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
That is the answer. That's the one thing we've never been able to do. We've always used collective things like religion or banking or money, or we need to all join to something.
Not always aliens, right? Not the fault of the aliens.
Can I just put the idea that you need 4 billion for critical mass is, I feel, not understanding what critical mass means. You don't need anything like that amount. There's a great saying which is about the 100th monkey. Have you heard this idea before?
There might be debunks.
Sorry?
I think there might have been debunks.
Well, it doesn't matter. The principle is what's important. There was an idea that the US had nuked an island to do experiments on it and put monkeys on them to see how they would live. And part of the problem was that the radiation would hang on the husk of the coconut. So the researchers taught the monkeys to clean the coconuts, and they survived much better. And they had to teach one, and one monkey taught another monkey. And there were, you know, tens of thousands of these monkeys living on an island. The important part of the story is the 100th monkey, when it learned to clean the coconut, suddenly every other monkey on the entire island started doing it. And whether it's an urban myth or not, the point is, you don't need a majority. What you need is, and it's part of the nature of human beings, that when they see something that works, it spreads like wildfire. It becomes, you know, like a crystal, and it just spreads suddenly. But it has to be perceived as working.
Yes, I agree totally with you.
Yeah, I think I was in agreement with Justin, but also thinking about what Mark Boyle was saying. He's working on a local scale, and I think you need to get away from this. That's what's caused the problem, is we're so obsessed with getting things on a global scale that we're spending ridiculous amounts of money to send apples to Africa to get them waxed, to have them sent back to the UK so that we can eat them. You know, if you think on a very small local scale and it works, then the village or the town next to you will see that it's worked and they will do it, and it will be a gradual process, just like the demonstrations in the Middle East. It is it's infective. You can't help that, and I think you need to. It's a horrible way of thinking about it, but look at your local area and try and consider it its own little world, and consider how you can do the best for humankind and nature and resource management within that small area. And there is no definition of what that area would be.
All right. So my logic, my thinking is I'm trying to see a method of transition from the current system into something better. With regards to the local economy or local production, we don't have the facilities in place currently to produce food.
No, but you can very easily. I mean, at the end of the day, if you locally, put it this way, locally, you stopped going to Tesco's and you stopped going to fucking Sainsbury's, and you went and all you had to do was grow a few fruit and veg, even on your I'm obsessed with roofs, but on your roofs, and you just put some earth. Our buildings are structured to take a hell of a lot more weight than they require. You could put earth in bags, I've seen it because I surveyed them, on roofs, and you could grow fruit and vegetables that would support that community. And in estates, an estate near me, where I live in North London, they have converted where they've got silly shrubbery. They've chucked all that out and they're growing their own fruit and veg, and the kids are getting involved, and that's what we want. Okay, it's not enough to maybe completely sustain you, but you reduce. If you stop buying from these massive commercial companies, they are going to feel the pinch. Even if 20% of the people who stop using it, they're going to feel it.
Collapse.
You know, it's like I don't eat Nestle, I don't eat certain brands, and I'm 1 in billion.
Listen, look, like I'm again software. I'm trying to just look at bugs in the
By the way,
system.
I'm software. I'm a software guy.
Yeah, me
Right.
too, me
so
too.
It's about solving bugs.
No,
You
it's
both
not.
agreed that you can go quite a far way by producing locally, but it's not far enough. And if you remove the system that was providing the food before, what is going to happen?
But how can we remove the system?
No,
I'm
it
not,
is
I'm not
enough.
saying you
I can
don't.
tell you
I'm
how
saying
it's
we
no.
take
I
over
can actually
Tesco's.
tell you how
We
it's
take
enough.
over the supply chain.
No.
And someday in the future, with the critical mass and with the majority, everybody goes back into work and carries
I
on.
can tell you how it's enough, because if people are willing to sacrifice themselves for a few months, if you weren't going to go into the shop and buy food products, which a lot of them are from Israel, why the fuck are we buying products from Israel when they completely obliterate any like UN resolutions? And you bought only home produce, you can get it. Okay, it may travel from Wales and travel all the way to London, but that's a hell of a lot less impact than coming all the way from Israel to this country. And if you look at your products and you see where it comes from, and you target places that are outside of the UK, and there's a complete swarm of people that agree on that, I think you can do it. I don't, but you're not going to achieve everything local, but local can be local UK. You know, let's just start with the UK. I think it's possible.
It's a good thing, of course.
I mean, why the fuck are we buying products
Because
from
people are
other
lazy
countries?
and they just expect other people to do the hard work for them.
And they
just
look
pay
nice
it.
and round. Why are they all perfectly shaped? It's like nobody wants all that. You know, why are tomatoes looking like that? I don't like it.
Okay, I think that okay, we are not 100 monkeys yet here. I think we are maybe few, but I think
Well, I'm
we
at
are,
least 23 monkeys.
Yeah, 23 monkeys is critical mass for me. I think that, really, I think that if we, all of us together, go outside and start a business that doesn't reward ownership, and then people wouldn't fear unemployment because the business wouldn't reward ownership, would reward unemployment. So if the machine replaces you, you go home and get the same pay because machines don't eat. And if you start something like that, other people will say, wait a minute, why are we so worried about unemployment? These guys found a way of just going back to basics, and unemployment is a good thing. It means that we don't have to work to get the same things. That's what it means. So we're just forgetting what we start fighting for. What I'm saying is that us together tomorrow can change the world. All we need is to offer people an alternative. People that don't care about Zeitgeist will never understand that Zeitgeist ideas, will never hear about that, will understand that it's possible to live without working. And that's it. So we just need to live by example.
We've had this argument a long time.
It's easy. If we stop talking and start doing, we've done it.
Where are you going
You need
to
to
get
do
the
both. You must
We've
do
had
both.
this discussion before, and I asked for you for a cash flow forecast. Like, how
What
do you
cash
get the
flow?
investment to set up these local facilities to produce food?
Mate, this is like, I don't need cash flow. All I need is resources. All I need is a place where I can start like developing a few ideas. And you can
Carlos, come and speak to us. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
I want to build a food, water, energy, information producing technology, and I'm going to go build it, and we're going to go and...
So there we go. We get
That's
together.
gonna feed
so
us
the
and
three
look
of us
after us.
We're going to
monkeys.
Spain now.
Sorry?
I mean,
We're going to Spain.
Personally,
Yeah, Spain
Nice
is
of
easier.
it.
There's a lot of sun in Portugal.
Yeah.
I think that although we don't have monetary,
Something that fights heat, cold.
although we don't have monetary capital, there's a lot of spiritual, intellectual capital amongst us as a group, and I think we can do a lot with that in Bristol. So I mean, I think we should at least try and do something, because we can't really change the globe, but as a group we can change. We can catalyse a change in Bristol, and then that will have an effect on other things. So we've got a great spiritual, intellectual capital here, and I think we should try and do something with it.
These guys are both right and they're both wrong. You need both.
If it starts here, then one person sees it and another, and it grows. It does.
It's fashion. It's all about fashion. It's like Ugg boots. You know, they're crap. They don't work. They make your feet hurt, but everybody fucking wears them. We
Unfortunately,
show something that works.
she's
maybe
absolutely
they'll-
right. That is the determining factor. It's got
And organic
what's
foods.
cool
I mean, it's now
besides
posh and whatever in London. It's the biggest
everything.
thing.
it.
Yeah, that's it.
Who decides what's cool then?
Me.
Media.
Yeah, that's what.
The media.
Who are the media?
Well, people.
Rupert Murdoch. No.
But it's what's.
But seriously,
it's what's,
what determines what's cool is what makes the people who design products the most money.
if if one person put it this way, if you're in a school and the coolest kid in the school who's renowned for it has a certain type of shoe, then it escalates and they all do it. And similarly, in normal adult society, the same thing would.
What about if the coolest kid sort of made their own shoes out of something? I think it's going back to the point that you made about basically you've got to do something that makes you feel good and happy, because if other people witness you feeling good and happy, they're going to want some of what you've got.
Yeah.
So they're going to go to you and say, oh, so how are you doing that? And and then they'll start copying you, or they'll get some of your ideas.
It's a concept of advertising.
Yeah, I mean, I think
but it's
the same thing.
internal.
It's
internal.
two things. It's not just. People said words aren't enough, but words and action in combination is what works.
See,
because I'll go to the office and say,
both.
fuck man, I've been out in Oxford Street looking for some shoes and I can't find anything that ethically sourced. And I'll have a rant about it, and I'll rant to everybody in the office if I can. And then we have a question about ethically sourced goods. But it's something that sticks in their mind. They may not like it, but it sticks in their mind. But then you come in the next 3 days and go, well, I found some. Then it's a progressive thing. So it's a little bit of a mix and match.
But I don't think, but I don't think advertising in itself is intrinsically bad. It's the way in which it's used. It's like it's the profit motive. But if it's about creating a sort of good, you know,
not advertising as such, but it's the use of humanity to provide, like, if good advertising is the product speaking for itself. If you want to advertise a car, you put it driving from one spot to another. That's it. The car works. Like, you know what I mean. You don't need the heated tinted
and
light.
it is designed to warp your perception.
Yeah,
that's right. And if you're, for example, if you're on a tube and you're going up the tube in London, there's all these flashlight adverts all the way up. Whereas if they were all about saving the world, maybe people might think about it.
Got a point over here.
I've got 2 points. The first is what's cool and what's not cool. Well, what is cool is whatever you decide is cool.
Yeah,
you see that.
precisely.
But if you see somebody like
David Beckham or... Well, I'm just...
Well, no, I was going to say, if you see someone making their own food and being happy in their lives, then you'll see that's cool and you'll adopt that kind of mentality. Whereas if you're seeing on TV, if somebody's trying to push you trainers all the time, and they've got they've got fucking trainers, amazing. You know, people are going to adopt that mentality. So what we need to do then is start a massive slander campaign against television. Just completely slander television.
On what medium will we do that?
Through word of mouth.
Which channel will you
make
use?
television very
Everything's flawed.
uncool. And if we can make television uncool, then people will stop. It's already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening.
Television.
Yeah,
It's shit. I still sit there for 5 hours.
I'm very much.
Well,
very much not being like don't see the problem, being pro the solution. All that time spent into being slander in television, promoting the opposite.
TV replaces your friends.
No, but my point was
it's interaction with the world.
No, my point is, if you can make television seem uncool,
It's not essentially uncool.
well, no, the point is though.
It's about what it's good Attenborough program.
What you're showing on.
Wouldn't be without it.
How is television funded?
I pay for it.
Advertising,
It's funded through
I
advertising.
pay £12 a month.
Yeah, we're licensed.
What about BBC?
How many-
That's new.
That doesn't fund that.
That's not what created television. That's advertising created television.
I mean, television isn't inherently bad. It does. It has.
No, I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is because television is seen as cool, people then adopt the mentality of the advertising. Whereas, if we can steer people away from television, then which is already happening because of the internet anyway. But what we can do is they'll start opening their minds to what is cool, and what is actually cool is how to live your life.
No, but what's not cool is not television. It's that there's kids like sewing your Nike sign on your T-shirt in fucking Thailand. Like, so you're gonna take it out on the television, but I still went and bought my Reeboks. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. Like, everyone's such a hypocrite.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is that we are the problem. We think we're so separate, we're so different.
Yeah, I don't think it's television.
No,
It's down the street,
I don't know if we do think we're so different. I don't know if anybody's got that ego in this room.
I'm corrupt
I'm saying
because I use money. So unless we really understand what we are.
What we are is we are the rapers of the earth.
Of course.
We are the ones who are using all of the resources and doing nothing about it and being like, yeah,
we didn't choose to. What's the problem with it being there?
We didn't choose to. Think in your life, like how many times you've relied on those things to get you to where you needed to be, or whatever.
Yeah, but you only do what you can. Like,
no, what's the point of looking back? You know, now is now.
No, but that's what I mean. So
but why should we deny things that are obvious? I mean, like, I don't feel any bad or
no, but the only
better.
reason Nike has a shop in Thailand is because we thought it was heaps better to pay less for the shoe.
Yeah, and they are free range.
It's our fault because we went and bought it, because we all eat at McDonald's.
What's the goal in sitting and blaming ourselves?
It's not blaming.
The lady over
it's
the lady over here.
It's responsibility.
It's knowing reality.
The lady over here.
Being aware of reality is not blaming.
I know that fully.
So just don't point to each other. Change yourself. Be the change you want to see in the world. I mean, like,
that's what I'm saying.
Don't say it's the banks or the families or the media or
I
whatever.
was lazy.
It's
I went to
you.
Manchester.
Just do
Okay,
something
right.
different.
Feel like cooking.
Go outside. Do something different that you, and that's it. That's all it takes.
Sorry, the lady over there.
The lady.
Yeah.
Where?
I just want to put it out there that I actually don't think A, that we need to stockpile, B, that we're causing a massive fuck up. In fact, I think the opposite. That every single person in this room is representing a large number of people in this society who's recognising a change of consciousness which is happening. And we are all here because we all want to see a better world. And I think that we need to keep a focus on that. And the fact that we have recognised these problems and we do all want to do something about it. And I just think it's it's great that all of everybody is here in this room today and everybody is looking for that. And that's indicative of a change and a positive change that is happening in our world. And I think that's
Church. So what are we doing really?
Maybe that's us.
That's a quick question.
I'm only joking, sorry.
Well, I was just going to go back to the whole TV thing. It's having this repulsion to what we're like faced with, rather than like repulse it and maybe work with it. If you can advertise a good and positive, different way of life, and it becomes popular, then people will want to advertise.
You see, like in Australia, let's say this huge island completely owned by
Who wants it? Like get rid of all Muslims, by the way.
No, but like
I'm not very
this
happy with
island, complete media, like a whole stronghold by this one corporation, by this one entity. What do you say to them?
In Australia.
No, but the thing is, it's all about word of mouth. This is the whole thing.
Yeah, it's all about word of mouth, but I can talk to you about it. But unless you see it represented in the world, that's what.
Well,
that's
I
what
will
gives
give you an
the
example, right? 5 years ago, I was planning to quit my job and buy a shop and start an organic food shop. And the only way I could do it was ask my mother for money, and she went, "No, it's not going to work." Like 5 years later, I have 4 shops in my high street which are all selling organic foods, and I would have been making a fucking killing. And it's not going to work. But it's all about word of mouth. You know, if people are interested in, you know, people think certain products are good because they become a cliche or they become some kind of.
Yeah, but like for me, the thing that got me with the first Zeitgeist, and it was before they re-edited it and stuff.
No, but the first Zeitgeist,
was for the first time in my life, I was having somebody talk to me and show me things that I had always thought. Do you know what I mean? The things that I had in me, but you just don't.
Yeah, but people don't
trust.
talk anymore.
Do you know what I mean? Well, you don't trust in yourself if you don't have something
that shows you. Do you know what I mean? Like you need that outside
But this
thing.
comes back to words again. Sometimes you have all this fuzz of thoughts, and you need a word to make them real. And once they become a word in a sentence, all of a sudden they're real and they're tangible, and you can touch them. And then they become
That's what happened with me with Zeitgeist. Is I was just like, wow, like fucking. Even if the details and stuff, that doesn't matter. Like the facts and stuff, whatever. It's the truth in the how can I put it? In the disharmony, the truth in the falseness of our direction. You know?
It's like questioning something you never questioned before. That's very powerful.
Or if you did question it, but you never were.
Nobody ever fucking listened to you.
Yeah, like
when I used to get drunk, I used to rant whenever I got drunk. I'd have a good old rant and nobody fucking listened to me. And then eventually a few people did, and then I stopped ranting. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, I stopped
doing this when you were sober as well.
I just pressed play and just said, fucking, I'm leaving. I'm going outside.
The amazing thing I think that many people find about Zeitgeist, and it goes back to actually what Mark was saying about stories and stuff like that, is when you see that someone gives you a story which is so much more believable than the one that you have believed in your entire life up to this date, and you go, oh my God, the ground just shifts beneath your feet. As soon as that happens once,
and it's not
then the floodgates are open, that you start to re-examine all kinds of things in your life and stuff like that, and you realise that actually you have been looking through, as he put it, a lens the entire time, and you're able to take that away from your eye and really see what the world is like.
That's why the re-edited one I found was lacking that truth, I found.
The what?
The re-edited Zeitgeist, the one they did of the first one again because people were complaining that it was quite
I don't know if I've seen the re-edited.
The original one.
It's not a necessary film to watch anymore.
Pardon?
It's not a necessary film to watch anymore, the first one.
No, I just found that the first one had so many.
Great.
Some of the things were a bit off. It was the intention behind it. That then they had to censor themselves and they had to change things and then it was just like
because the sea of the status quo is so powerful that you can't say these things. People's brains are now so aligned to one way of thinking that it's just too threatening to even question it, despite the fact that it was all based on factual information.
And it's not going to go well.
Whatever you think about that, please understand that we are all still, even though we're here now today, utterly dominated by this, story that we live around.
So everything we think the future is going to be comes from that.
Yeah. Just wanted to one thing.
Everything you think could happen or would happen or is.
The bar's got that point.
Just wanted to say one thing. I've been living without a TV for 6 years now. And I'm quite a happy man. I know where I want. I'm happy. And as far as the advertising is concerned, I totally agree. You can use it for positive or negative. So how do we advertise the Zeitgeist movement on mainstream TV when it's owned by the very people we are advertising against? That's the it's like a catch-22.
Yeah, that's what I mean about Australia.
You know it's on the mainstream in Italy now.
There's a very limited amount of it on the mainstream. We don't really get the attention of the majority of the public.
No, but that can come. Like, you got Michelle Rodriguez from Avatar picking it up now. Lisa Incubus, one of the actresses from Glee, in Italy right now. One of the main, biggest TV presenters there went to a Rome screening, loved it. Now they're showing 20 clips of it over his 10-week series program. He's one of the biggest people in Italy. They get up to 8 million viewers on every show. Italy will be talking about this now in a big way.
It's happening.
That will lead to, obviously, once Italy sees it, Spain might do it, France might do it.
Yeah, but we still can't
In 2 years.
forget that words can only take us so far, and the rest needs to be actions. And we need to understand that the internet didn't spread like it spread because people got convinced that it would work because they saw their mates working with it. That's why it got spread. Planes, people didn't lose their fear of flying because some scientists explained them that it was possible to fly. They lost their fear of flying because everyone was in Ryanair going to Spain and they wanted a piece of the action. So that's by doing things, that's how you actually spread, you know. So words are fine until the small minority gets a project, but once the small minority gets the project, You don't need a critical mass. All you need is to apply the project, and if it works, everyone else will adopt it.
Yeah, it's still hugely
The
possible.
lady in the blue?
I suppose what springs to mind is the woman Rosa Parks who was on the bus in, I don't know if it was Alabama, but in the deep south, and who refused to get up, you know, when there was segregation.
Yes.
So she made that stand,
Yeah.
and now there's a black president.
Yes.
So it has to start somewhere.
Sorry?
Well, yeah, I know, but I think...
She didn't do it by complaining about it.
Scumbag president.
And they call me brown hand in the office.
We do something about it.
Yeah, we do.
That's what we, you know, like, we can talk all we want, and it's very good for our brains to talk.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, if we don't do anything, then everything will be the same. It's as simple as that. It's like, even if it appears in media, whatever, you know, like, because the economic system provides, we can see that it's perverted, but it provides people with something that they value.
Yeah, but first things first.
It can be all wrong.
That's the problem. That's exactly
it can be all wrong, but people go to the supermarket and they get food and it tastes good, or it tastes bad, but it tastes at something, you know, like, and that's real, you know, that's a real thing. If we want to provide an alternative, it can't be with words. It needs to be, okay, this, you know, like, let's use energy, renewable energy, to start some kind of hydroculture, and then give that food to people and say, you know, like, you can have this for free if you all do the same, and then that's an alternative. But until that alternative exists, all we have is words. It's not, we don't need critical mass, we need to start doing it.
Justin had a...
Can I think possibly we have some similar ideas, and I had initially had this idea that perhaps you could develop with technology this kind of pod that was based on solar panel, and you could drill down to the water table, and the solar panel would use a pump and bring up water, and it would grow food inside it, and you could process waste, and it would all become part of the same thing, and then that could actually have an internet connection as well. So if you could create that, and then you could just keep creating them and put them everywhere, so it meets most sort of basic needs, and you just replicate them. And suddenly the need to participate in the existing system just absolutely vanishes, and there's no power of you. So the extension to the individual pod is to also create a system which can create more of the same thing. So maybe using 3D printer technology or something like that. I've heard you can even make plastic out of hemp. I'm a big fan of. There's loads of stuff you can do with hemp. Is an incredible plant. You may be able to make plastic. So maybe you can grow the hemp, create the plastic. You can create systems out of it, and they can replicate, and you can build and build and build and build and carry on. Now, if you could do that, or even if you could almost do it,
but we'll never know until we try, and that's the other thing. We can speculate all we want. I could do 10,000 cash flow plans, right? And some of them would tell me I could go, and some won't. But if I'm afraid, because of that conclusions of actually trying, you know, like failing is a lot better than any cash flow plan. I'll get a lot more feedback from failing.
You just
failing from compared to my goals, right? Because I don't believe in failing. But compared to a certain goal, if I don't achieve that goal, I learn a lot more than any 10,000 cash flow plans I'll ever do that will just keep me from trying.
Maybe the issue is time. Maybe you don't have time to learn by failure.
But if I don't have time, then human...
There's going to be a severe economic...
But if I don't have time, then humans, I'm doomed anyway.
So then it's even more important.
Alright, okay, you're in favour of chaos, I'm not.
So you don't get 100%, so you don't get 100%, so you only get 50%. You've still got a fuckload more than you start with.
One thing is...
So
it
makes it more important that you do it.
Wait a minute.
No, but if you apply yourself and you learn how to live with nature, the whole point is the system we're in at the moment has separated us completely from being able to look after ourselves. We go to a shop and we go to a machine. But if you go back to the mental state of, even if you can just grow potatoes, but your neighbour can grow strawberries, you know, you don't need to grow everything, you just need to grow something, and everybody could survive, even on their in their houses, in their flats. You know, you grow things in the flat, it drives me mad. But you can grow things inside the house
I have a
as well.
full aeroponics set up in my flat now.
Really?
There was an exchange.
I'm growing. I've been growing stuff all winter, which is my house.
I just don't want.
I I'd rather have a world disaster than chaos.
I couldn't bear world
disaster. There's a bit of nature.
No, like, it's time for happiness. Like,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't work like
deal
that.
any more stress, like basically.
Unfortunately, it does not work out. Bad for man is good for nature. Bad for man quite often will mean war.
In America.
That's what we got to avoid.
Maybe. Time for hope. In Australia, for preparing for disasters.
Well, but
Yeah, you can't eat hope.
No, you can't. No.
it doesn't matter what we think. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
I'm going to say yeah to all this like practical displaying and getting involved locally and having hydroponic stuff. Of course you need to do things. But at the same time, there's this, I want to harness the sort of positivity of what Sarah was saying. Like, when you've got these examples like the Italy scenario, like them like learning about it hugely, that of course it matters. Like, of course we need to use words to spread it further, and of course people need to imagine it before they can do it. Like, until the world's familiar with it, what are we here for? Like, you know, if we believe in the idea, of course we've got to spread it across the world.
Well, but if people don't agree with Zeitgeist, they agree with system.
Your system, right?
If they might not agree with Zeitgeist, but like the way we get food, and that's enough.
Exactly.
I don't care about Zeitgeist. This is not a religion. People don't have to believe things.
No.
You know, people people just have to like the outcomes of applying an idea. That's all they need. You know, and if they don't like the outcomes, then choose something else. And if we all die, then like we all die. What's the problem? You know, like I'm not. It's not because I'm scared of dying that I'm going to do something different.
Of course you don't have to believe it.
Sorry, carry on.
Of course you don't have to believe it, but presenting the idea to as many people as possible.
Surely you must be both. It has to be both.
Just warning everyone.
But
It's coming.
That shouldn't stop people from actually doing something.
No, I'm saying both.
Saying, oh, I'm going to wait until everyone agrees until I do something.
I'm not saying
Then when I think that everyone agrees, the first guy that already agreed changes his mind, then I have to go back again. Wait a minute, do you agree? Really? Okay. And then the other guy changes his mind. You know, we live in a complex adaptive system. If we are waiting for something in order to do something, we'll never do it.
I'm not saying that.
We live in a capitalist system, and really all you need to do something is for money or resources, as somebody else suggests. So maybe
Or
that's
will,
something we should.
or knowledge, or technology, or information.
Will only goes as far as actually having the resources to do it as well. So I mean, like, but let's do it. Let's just actually just
do something in
I
a
think
small
you
scale.
need. I think you need some land. You need some basic resources. You need a whole lot of knowledge, and you need people to cooperate with, and you can get quite a long way. That's what this is theory I'm testing.
Well,
we're going to
let's
space.
do it.
We're going
I'm
to give
up
that
for it.
theory a test. We're going to make a film about it. See how we get on.
You all have a lot of ideas. Is there anywhere where we can share those ideas, like hydroponics, like growing things in your house, in your apartments? Yeah.
Does anybody want me to build a website?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we need a
I'll
new
help
website,
you with a website, mate.
in the
You know, like we'll
Zeitgeist.
stay in touch. I'll help you with a website as well.
Key thing is sharing ideas.
These are the practical steps that I think are important. Sharing ideas, sharing knowledge.
Idea share.
So that we can all begin to do things.
I'd love to grow my own tomatoes.
Yes.
I have tomato plants growing this high in my house. I have a little light that was developed by NASA, which puts out this pink light, which is perfect for plants.
LED.
And they're in it, an LED, and they're in a. The roots go down into this big crate, and there's a aeroponic system that I bought from Maplin's, which turns the nutrient solution into a fog, and I have a timer plug.
As a matter of interest,
and that's it. I never need to look after it. It just grows and grows and grows and grows.
That's amazing, mate.
Like a light.
That's what we should do, and then
It's a 90
show
watt light.
people.
Okay, so it costs no more than running a lamp.
Yeah.
Really?
So it's like
Two
a
lamps.
couple of light bulbs.
Is that a UFO?
It is, yeah.
And you're happy with it?
I'd like more than I just got it as an experiment. I wanted to see how it would work out, and I tried lots of different types of plants. Some of them worked really well, some of them didn't work so well. The tomatoes love it. They've just gone bananas. They're like taking over half my.
But can you imagine if we build an horizontal farm? A vertical farm.
Yeah, vertical.
Vertical.
Yes. Diagonal.
I always confuse it. Can you imagine if we build a vertical farm in each neighborhood, like instead of having a McDonald's or of having a Starbucks, you have a damn building that it's just, and it doesn't have to be run by anyone, you just have machines to pick things. So people put coins there, like I want a kilo of tomatoes and a machine goes there, picks the tomato, and it will be ripe because it's just fresh and it tastes good and it's organic. And if you have one, instead of any Starbucks, you have one in each neighborhood, and the people just buy things just that are freshly picked, you know, and it's completely compatible with the current system because it's viable.
Can you construct it in a sustainable way as well? And that is a possibility, I think. So you take not only the thing you want to build, but the methodology of replicating it.
Yeah, and
there's the task, and it's there. It's
open source, and anyone can copy it. And we want people to copy it because there's no business, there's no money involved, there's no ownership, there's no profit. So if people, you know, because this system doesn't work because everyone is with secrets because of competition. You know, like people are 10,000 different people are trying to do research to cure the same cancer, but they don't share their knowledge because they want to be the first one so they can sell the cure. If people just stop competing and just open source everything, and then people would say, oh, you can add this, and everyone improves each other's products, you know, it would be, there's no way this system can compete with that. The power of cooperation. Competition could never compete with cooperation.
Are
never.
going to kill us. Patents will be the thing.
They won't
Really
because they can't compete with cooperation. We'll avoid that.
I was thinking a little while ago, I was thinking of this thing that was very big and expensive, and I was thinking of ways to fund it. And I realised the best way to fund something that is like that is do an eBay-like system where you sell the shares, you sell shares in your idea before you ever actually produce it. You get enough people to invest, you know, £1 or £100 or £10, and they all get a cut of the profit, the proceeds afterwards. And in that way, you can do very, very big, large-scale things without the need to worry about petrol companies trying.
Yeah, but it's not profit in the end of the day, because I would say that everyone can get a tomato or something. You know, you just invest £1, get a tomato every month or something. You know, like the thing is that it's the community idea behind it.
Yeah.
So you know, like if we get together and we stop like these fake enemies, if we get together, we are a lot more stronger than we give ourselves credits for. So you know, like I don't fear media or them, politics or corporations or whatever that means, because they compete amongst each other. They're inherently weak. You see, no one can compete with cooperation. So if we cooperate genuinely, right, the motivation of like the development, the motivation of actually feeling that we're contributing for something, a higher goal, will be a lot stronger than all those monetary-based motivations out there. So no one can compete with it. So by default, the system either adapts what we're saying or ceases to exist, which for us is the same thing, right? Because we don't want them to be bad. We just want everyone to be better. You know?
I would say that currently there is a system, which is called BZM, where new developments have a tick class if they meet certain criteria. And so they undertake certain surveys before they redevelop, and they implement certain activities within the new development so that they meet the criteria. But at the moment it's completely flawed, and it's just superficial, and it's just like putting makeup on a woman's face who really looks quite revolting if she takes it off. And I mean, speaking from somebody who has some interest or has worked with green roofs, in actual fact, your idea about taking a tomato or whatever, it is possible for us to have green roofs and green walls around every single building, and it's if you were to convert all of that, at the moment, our idea of putting in green roofs is sedum because it's cheap and cheerful. But if you were to convert that into something which was harvestable, it would reduce the amount of money that was needed to bring imported goods in, and it is possible. And it's a matter of people making that objection, I think, because I mean, I work with bats, which are a pain in the arse. Everybody hates them. They find them, they want to get rid of them because they cost them a lot of money, because they involve me coming out and doing surveys. They need licenses to do stuff. But similarly, any new building should have a license, or they should be penalised if they do not meet these criteria. You know, there is no, our buildings, even though they were built years ago, are able to cope with agriculture on their buildings in a small scale. And if they were penalised, they would do it, and it doesn't actually, it just costs them a gardener. You know, it's one person.
Persuade the regulators to create new regulations.
When the
yeah, there has to be a way of, you know, there has to be a way, but at the same time, that's already sort of occurring. I mean, for example, in London, definitely, in Bristol I'm not so sure, but in London, within the Biodiversity Action Plan, it's a requirement that green roofs are considered within any new development. And similarly, it could be a general, I mean, in Basel, any new development has to have a green roof now. And it is possible to make policymakers make that a definite requirement. And green roofs could be agricultural roofs. And that's how you make the stand. And the only way to do that is by petitioning and by, you know, telling your local governments that that's what you want. But you don't, people think, people, even like the Venus Project, it gives the concept that you have to create a whole new city. And that's the ideal. And I personally, we have arguments about this all the time, I personally don't think that's the way forward. I think we need to work with what we've got to start off with and slowly develop. And what we have actually at the moment is possible to alter into a sustainable way through certain processes. We have built our buildings in an OTT kind of fashion that they can have agriculture on them, they could support solar paneling on them, they could be altered, they could have drainage added to them so that we collect water. You know, our main problems with urban environments are the fact we've got no food resources, we cannot control water, which is a major problem in terms of flooding. So that in itself, I'm giving water an example, is a great advert because insurance companies are having to pay out all the time, or people are going to have to pay out to insurance companies in order to live in certain areas. And if you had that, a green roof, a very simple thing, it would reduce it. Reduce the cost of having to put air conditioning in, reduce the cost of having to put heating in. You know, if you can promote, you have to sell, you know, we have to become salespeople, in a sense, to promote a change in our environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like I said, critical mass earlier on, and maybe that's not correct. It's more consensus, and if we had a significant number of people who were able to voice their opinions on how we're to progress, I would rather go with the consensus. And I would hope that the consensus would... See, our society is fine. We've got enough food. We've got the supply chains.
At the moment,
At the moment, we do.
Not in
so,
maybe 6
like
months.
my idea of preserving that during the transition, and maybe the consensus would be voting for implementing some of the vertical farms in third world countries, or where the poverty-stricken countries first, before us.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, my main problem is that you say the consensus is who makes the decisions. Politicians make the decisions, and they don't listen to a fucking thing we say.
Number of people.
So the only way we can do it is to actually do it ourselves. So, for example, if you live in an estate, you decide as an estate community that you want to grow your own fruit and vegetable, whether that be on your roof or be on the bit of lawn that you have that is recreational ground, and you start growing. And they can't stop you from doing that, and you make that an example, and then the domino effect occurs. I mean, at the end of the day, we talk about changing policy, but we can't change policy because politicians don't listen to a fucking thing we say. The only time they'll listen to us is if they see it happening and then they want to be popular, so they have to change. So there is ways around it, but I don't think going through the political route is the way to
I
do
what
it.
you're saying also, it breaks the chain. If you stop buying vegetables in supermarkets because you're creating your own little by little, that circle starts to become smaller. And then
But
these
you
things
have to
happen
tell
by
people
themselves.
to do the same, and they may or may not.
Yeah, but instead of telling people about Zeitgeist, instead of telling people about Zeitgeist, instead of telling people about Zeitgeist, you can tell them what you're doing.
I don't think Zeitgeist is the thing.
Yes,
I
but
think
I'm
it's all
talking
about
about
changing people's attitudes. I think Zeitgeist is if you say, oh, I want you to become a follower of Zeitgeist movement, I would just go, fuck off. You're like, get me some garlic.
Yeah. So
it's like, that's not, this is what I'm doing. How about you? You know, it's concepts of the whole idea.
And explain why. And then because people will start saying, yeah, but why do you want to grow your own food? You can just go to the supermarket and buy it. You know, like, and then you can go deeper and deeper. But first you need to show people an alternative, and then people will come to you and ask you why you're doing it.
Well,
and
they
then
won't have to ask you anymore once we've got no food, anyway.
Yeah, no, but
if it comes to that, but
yeah, but the point is that once, if it comes to that no one has no food, you won't be able to maintain your greens anything because you just get like.
But it doesn't
so,
even need to come to that. I ate with my auntie who grows all her own vegetables, and I ate a plate of salad, and after eating that plate of salad, I don't want to buy it in the supermarket anymore because I realise how crap the salad in the supermarket is.
Yeah. And there's like, you think about the movement of vegetarianism even in this
But
country.
at the end of the day,
when
that
I became
doesn't
vegetarian,
stop.
no one did. No one was a vegetarian.
You can grow your
There's
own
no
food,
problem
and
now.
that's all good, but it won't stop them creating warplanes and going and bombing the shit out of people and burning their children alive in a foreign country.
Well, but it's
so it's all good and well. It's all good and well saying, oh, all you need to do is grow food and Zeitgeist doesn't matter, but actually, it doesn't solve really any of the
how can we stop those people bombing?
Yeah.
No, I think if you create a strength in a
you
community,
need a new system.
then you have the strength in the community to fight against the bigger powers, against things that you're not interested in. If we're just one person who doesn't, you know, at the end of the day, we went to the demonstration about the cuts, and what happened? You had Ed Miliband standing out there pretending it was his stage, when it fucking wasn't. That wasn't the whole, you know, so it became a Labour Party thing.
Yeah.
So he overtook it. But if people regain their communities, they will be strong and then they can fight. But at the moment, we're just a bunch of people who, may meet in London to demonstrate, but they're from all parts of the world, and then a politician takes over.
Both of you are right.
Yeah, I've heard, like, I think Rastas call it like Babylon, eh? And it's like the idea is that food is the most important thing because that's how we're controlled. Like that's the very basis of it. Food is like restricted, and then for that food you have to then work harder, and then obviously that kind of creates it's all to do with the I don't really understand it myself. I was speaking to a Rasta, he was telling me this.
No, but it's true. It's true because then he creates all the other things.
Exactly. But then once you learn to make that food for yourself, you're no longer in control. You're no longer under the control of anybody else because
you still have to work for it.
You still have to work for it,
but it's different because
work
is rewarded, not ownership, which is completely different. Than what
you still have to work for it, but you have a choice.
But it's ownership is not rewarded. Means that you get the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Not someone else gets half of what you do, right? And you only get half. You see, that's the problem is that the corruption is in the system itself. Every time I own something, which is some kind of artificial thing, and then I get reward for whatever that means that I own, without doing anything, then that's corruption itself there, because like I shouldn't get any reward for something that is not real, right? And when
but the delusion is that if you work in an office for 8 hours a day, the money you get is better than if you didn't work 8 hours a day, but you actually grew your own food, or you produce your own stuff to support yourself. We're in a delusion where we believe that we have to do that in order to sustain ourselves. Where actually you could probably work half the amount of time in that office so you can get things, he's not here anymore, but the things that you want, and still live off the food. You know, I mean, if you have an allotment, and you're a couple or a one-man band, you don't need to go to the supermarket very often.
You reckon you could? I mean, I work in an office and I use the money I get.
Yeah, because you have to.
Yeah.
You go to the supermarket.
I don't have a lot left.
But that's what I'm saying, you see, because
but
what
how
you
much
get...
money do you pay for a punnet of tomatoes, which are then put in plastic, and then another layer of plastic, and everything else that goes into it?
I haven't used money for 2 months, and like I squat and I skip. Obviously, skipping is by the by, but I do forage for a lot of food, and I think that just with not paying for rent, stop paying rent, and stop paying for food is perfectly possible. Even in the cities, like Brandon Hill, there's loads of food in Brandon Hill, tons.
How can we stop paying for rent?
Yeah, I mean, these
just literally stop paying rent.
But
Just go, the person that owns this building actually has. Sorry, Paul.
No, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
It always comes down to that again. This is why I raised the point at the end of the day. You will be charged for sleeping somewhere, having somewhere to shut your eyes for 8 hours. Someone will come and say, "Give me money."
Yeah.
And it always comes back down to land. That's the basis of everything. And if you have land and you have the right stuff, you could grow your own food and everything would be fine. You wouldn't have to pay a penny, and that's what we're hoping to achieve by buying a piece of land in Spain and going and trying it out. But without the land,
I think it's wrong not to pay. I'm sorry. I think it's wrong not to pay rent on somebody else's property who does own that land.
Why? If they don't live there, they don't need it. You see, like the thing.
They don't own it. They might have a mortgage. They didn't build it. They might have a mortgage. People that own this building.
But they don't need it.
But
if you don't live in a place, you don't
need
it.
It's a retirement.
we think it's normal that we should pay money to someone else for just being able to be in a place. And that's become the normal status quo, and it obviously comes from the feudal system, and now it's normal. And most people spend most of their lives working in a job they hate just to be able to have somewhere that they can sleep.
But the
That's
debate
the reality
isn't necessarily about whether this is just and right, but this is the world that we live in, you know, and I don't intend to say to my landlord, I'm not going to pay you this month, because the end result will be that I will be pushed out of my house and I'll sleep
and your
somewhere that's not a
landlord may
house and I
have a
choose.
mortgage, like you were saying, who's paid £250,000 for that property and has to pay for it.
Yeah.
So if the monetary system disappeared, okay, we're talking about a whole new ballgame, but we're not at the moment. It exists, and I think that that's unfair to move into somebody's property and then not pay. I think that's not being giving. I'm afraid. I think that's just being fucking horrible. I think you know, if you're being giving, you give. You don't shit on someone so that they've got to foot the bill.
Well, but the other thing I would like to achieve, like to see achieved, is that we get a better increase in standard of living, not a worse, not a decrease in our standard of living.
What do you mean by standard of living?
Yeah, that's subjective again, right? That's
a more level standard.
You're squatting. Like, so you've made a choice. Like, I'm sure you weren't squatting before you were squatting. You must have been living in a house that had warmth and bath and shower, so. So, like, you've taken essentially a reduction in the quality of living.
No.
What do you mean?
Massively increased quality of life.
Yeah, we see, because
for me, I can't relate to that. I do like my comforts, I guess.
But it's your values.
It's just a house. It's the security of those comforts.
Live in a beautiful house.
I mean, you could be kicked out tomorrow.
Yeah,
That security.
In fact, we just got our court papers through. We'll just find somewhere else. It's no big deal. I mean, in fact, that the idea that somebody can, if it's their property and they're having to pay for it and they're not using it, why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they be living in this building? And then the fact that they can take it back off of us makes it fair again. Because if they're not using it and they come in, it totally does. We've kept this place absolutely spanking
for charging rent from no one anyway.
Yeah, but they can't have anyone in there if there's someone squatting in there. They haven't got a choice. I'm sorry, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, and they have to go to the courts. If I was looking for a flat and I saw one which had squatters in and one that didn't, which one would I go for and move into straight away?
There's a whole.
Of course you're losing money on that.
Why do we want to give them money there? Isn't it just the same whether you do or you don't? Because it's
Okay, but Homer, people have bought up every place in the entire United Kingdom, so therefore, actually this planet, which belongs to me as much as anybody else, why the fuck should I pay anybody for being any...
Criticise Cuba continuously. In Cuba, 75% of the population own their own property. And I don't think ownership is necessarily a completely bad thing. People have a piece of land that they respect and then they look after. And I don't think anyone has the right for somebody who's had to work to actually own something, whether it be fictitious or not, I don't care. In the current monetary system, there's no reason why a squatter should be in my fucking house.
To own 2 properties is going to cost you about £500,000, right? There's no way you're going to earn that minimum wage for the rest of your life.
No, but you have to pay the fucking mortgage.
So somebody has to be exploited in order for that to happen.
Well, I have to earn the money to pay the mortgage.
If you've got £500,000 debt, you're not working in McDonald's to pay it off, are you?
No, you're working fucking hard.
You don't own anything.
No.
Listen, what's really happening is the bank owns it and you're shelling out money
I'm a one-man
for
band.
nothing.
I don't have anyone working for me, man, and I've got a fucking mortgage on a £250,000 house.
Did you have 2?
Right, which you don't
I
own.
own shit.
The bank owns it. The bank owns it. You're handing over money to the bank all the time to be able to live there, and that's the reality of most people in this
So you're
country.
going to get somebody else to pay for the house that you're going to be owning.
Yeah, because I can't afford it. Because I don't earn enough money to afford the house I'm in.
Basically, that's...
Exactly.
I have no real view on, or I do have a view on whether that's right or wrong, but I wouldn't resent you for it because that's the current model. But I do think that, to be fair, if you're gonna get somebody else to pay a mortgage on a house that you're going to eventually own, how's that fair?
Yeah,
how is it fair? In real terms, how is it fair that somebody else will live there for a few years, 25 years, pay the mortgage, and that you'll keep all the spoils?
Yeah. Once you've agreed to, whether it's fair or not.
Because generally,
The system isn't fair. Let's face it, it isn't fair, and that's the way it is. It is not fair.
Squatting isn't either, but it's the same.
No, but generally, if you have a mortgage, you put down a lump sum. You have actually worked to be. You don't just walk into the bank with no money and go, "Hi, I'd like to buy this house, and I'm working like this." You have to earn at least £10,000 or £20,000 to put as a deposit, and that's a lot of work for somebody.
So you have to do a huge amount of work just to be able to sleep in a building. Why is it that does anybody own any buildings? If nobody owned any buildings in this country, you'd just be able to walk.
There'd be no rent, there'd be no mortgage.
Fine, you'd be right.
No one would have to pay. No one would. You wouldn't have to work.
And I'm not advocating
4 days out of 5.
Just completely destroy ownership.
Just go on your mortgage.
What I think is we should have a system whereby if you like the look of the building, you put your name on a list, and then once that building becomes available, it becomes yours.
I mean, for example, there's a lot of people that I know whose parents have lived in council buildings, and then they've taken over the rights, and then when they take over the rights, they pay it off, and they've got a building that costs them nothing, and it costs them nearly it's nearly £250,000 or £500,000 because in those days. In the old days, we used to have council houses that were like top of the range. You wouldn't be able to get things like that. I mean, I'm not saying that people. I think there should be equal ownership, depending on what if you're a 2-person or if you're a family or whatever. That's fine. But in the current monetary system, then people have had to earn a lot of money to own something that they have. But if you were to abolish it, then fine. Then I know, if you were to abolish everything, I know as a single or a couple, I would get a 2 or a 1-bedroom flat, which is what I have now. I don't have an objection to that because I get what I want.
The problem is
what I need.
There has to be some political will in order to abolish something. So you can't just say, oh, we're abolishing this. Just 10 people in this room couldn't abolish it for shit.
No, but as the current monetary system, why should I suffer if I've invested money in a property just to let someone...
What I find personally completely fascinating about it is the fact that it's accepted without question, almost universally, that you should have to pay from the moment you're born, from the moment you go to work until you die, just to have somewhere to sleep on the land that, on the planet which is your planet along with everybody else. And it's one of those things that's accepted without any thought. I should spend most of my life doing a job I hate just in order to have somewhere I can sleep at night.
I think it's
And
worse
they get a
that you
little
have to
bit
pay
left
for a
over.
fucking education and come out with £40,000 worth of debt.
Well, okay, but that's on top. That's on top of just
Forget
having
about
somewhere
where
to
you're putting
sleep
your
at
head
night.
at night. Oh, if I have to use
And let alone taxes, which, like for example, when you spend most of your life paying into a pension fund or something like that, and the government spends all that money and then turns around and says, sorry, I can't afford now to pay you a pension because I've already spent the money. And now you're all going to have to pay more tax.
You know, like the thing is that we shouldn't justify assumptions rather than assumptions, and that's what you're doing. Like you're describing how the current system gets self-justified, which is fine, but what we're trying to do here is to question how did ownership begin in the first place? You know?
No. There was another point I was making, which is the fact that such delusions are so easily accepted that people don't question so many kind of obvious injustices. That it is so easy to fool people.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Frighteningly so.
That's
But
what I'm
you're
trying
not.
to say.
I mean,
how did ownership was created in the first place? I mean, like we are animals.
With the sword.
Suddenly an animal just decide. Imagine if a bear would decide that no other bears could live in those 10 caves that are around his. How would he maintain that?
He'll fight any other animal that comes along.
No, he can fight, but he can only defend one. He can only use one. All the others would taken over by all sorts of animals. You know, this artificiality that humans created that is not based in anything, and then we justify aberrant behavior with things that we created in the first place.
But for example,
it's just like we're just afraid of crazy thing with another crazy thing. Sorry?
Ownership is something that currently exists.
No, it's not.
Well,
it exists here.
It's an idea.
Nowhere else. It only exists in our heads.
Would you like to take your shoes?
Yeah, it's like when I went to Egypt, I was told to take my necklace off. It was gold with the Quran on it. When I went to the toilet, they told me I was being rude to God because I went to the toilet wearing a necklace with the Quran on it. And they told me to leave it on the outside of the toilet when I went to take a piss. It's like, fuck you, it's gold. I'm not taking that off. Somebody will take it.
It's okay, you can have that necklace is for you. It's
Yeah.
yours, you know?
But what's the point here?
And if you want, no, my point was going to be, there is a concept of ownership at the moment where if somebody owns a property, but if somebody has paid money, which doesn't exist, but pays money, which means they have to have had worked. It doesn't. Let's forget about money. They've had to sweat to pay for that flat.
But why?
For most flats, people don't pay though.
Wait a minute, but let's not mix things.
Not why. They have had to. There's no question of why. They've had to.
No.
Because somebody's made them.
Ah, okay. That's different,
but they
right?
still had to do that. They still had to work.
So what you're saying is that I was born a slave, yeah? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, so you're born a slave.
You are
so
born
if somebody
a slave, I'm born
wants
a
to
slave.
stay in my house, I am quite happy to let my friends stay in my house, but I have a choice to give that as a gift. But someone hasn't got the right to come into my property.
You have very little choices. You just have the illusion of choices, and that illusion makes you fight the wrong person.
Makes
That's
you
the
not
problem.
realise you're a slave.
The fault you being a slave is not from the other slaves. It's from the actually slave owner. You see what I mean? So whenever you think that the problem
I think if somebody asks me, I may not have a problem. But if somebody just goes into my property without asking me, then I have a problem, because that's just fucking rude.
Of course it's understandable.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's
I
not
know what
human
you're
nature.
saying. I know what you're saying, but the main issue is not people not having a place to sleep and eating. Because I can't believe that if he owned a house, he would try to sleep in yours. You see what I mean? The problem is not that it's not you. The problem is that people don't. There's enough houses for everyone, but not everyone gets entitled to live in a house. And that's the question why, you know, like that, because if the house exists and people are not using it, meaning that they don't need it, why shouldn't it be used by someone else?
In the UK, I believe there's way more empty houses than homeless people.
No,
far more.
Agree. People should be able to use a house.
So if just saying, like, if somebody came and squatted in your house, but squatting was completely above board and everybody did it.
If somebody squatted
if you're not paying for a place to live, why would it be wrong for them to not be paying
No, if somebody came and squatted in my house and I said, okay, you can squat in my house until I get a tenant, that would be fine.
That happens a lot actually, but
yeah, the problem. The problem is the judicial system. In that, if you have squatters, usually it takes forever, and no one. If somebody respects my property, that's all you want. Is someone to respect your property, and leave when you want them to. There's not a problem. But that's that's what I'm saying. If somebody asked me if they could move into my house, that's like it's that lack of communication again. We don't have that. Yeah, if someone's on the dole, you generally say, no, I don't want them renting my house. That's just generally what the tenants or the agents will tell you, don't they? Somebody who's on the dole or whatever.
It's a basic morals of respect, that's all we're talking about.
Yeah, but we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, but privacy...
So I'm suspicious. I don't trust any
everyone's opportunising all the time.
Yeah, but privacy and ownership are two different things. I go back to the same point, is that if it's all fine that we deal, because when I go outside and I live in the current world, I'm not outside the world. I do exactly everything, but my enemy, right, is not what the system propagates that my enemy should be. So I don't hate and love what they tell me I should hate and love, because that's propagating the system. You see, like, it's fine that you don't want someone in your house because you are entitled to your privacy. That's all good, you know. But if that happens, they are not the enemy. The enemy is the people that actually create these artificial things.
I don't think I would have an enemy, actually.
Yeah, but you see, but
I
that's
just
what
think it's rude.
Okay.
I think one of them. There's two core things I would say about society and why we're in the situation we are today. Is people have lost the ability to respect one another,
no, a system
and they
can
have
be
lost
an enemy.
the respect of nature, and they're the two things. I don't think anyone these days.
I agree.
You know, I live in London, but if I'm short, if you haven't noticed already. If I'm walking along in London, people will push me. They will. It was almost like I don't exist, because people don't have a personal respect for any other person anymore, and they're the fundamental things.
That's just the way
especially in London.
Yeah, it's a social problem.
Downward spiral.
And that's why we need to go back, like Mark was saying, to these community roots, because that makes you learn
saying the
that
problem
the
is
person
the
who
system.
works on
Okay, he said the word enemy, but he was saying the problem is the system that creates all of those.
Yeah, but if your behaviour is such that you continue with the system, then you're as bad as the system, aren't you? If somebody
you were condoning that.
Yeah.
That there is
if somebody went into my property without asking me, I think that's fucking rude.
Yes, but
I don't give a shit.
No.
I don't care how many properties I have.
But the question is, why would they do it? Why would they do it? Because they were cold?
I don't
because
give
they
a
were starting?
fuck why they do it. They have the decency to ask you if you can go in there.
Well, you see, but you need to...
That is a problem.
Yeah, that's what's wrong with the world.
Because when we're having a conversation about society and its problems, that's
to ask somebody if
no,
you can go somewhere.
No, you misunderstand me. I understand that, I respect that. But to say you don't give a fuck why they do it, even if you can not give a fuck, you can give a fuck why they do it and dislike it at the same time.
Yes.
No, I think, I don't care how bad your situation is, you should always have the courtesy to ask someone if you can borrow something or take something. I do not.
Yeah, but if you were denied,
forces people into doing things they don't want to do.
But you still.
I would agree, but our system forces people into doing things they wouldn't normally do.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does.
And you still need to know why.
Then we're not. We're supposed to be sitting here talking about not living in the system.
But there's a contradiction there.
Your whole conversation is based upon the fact we are living in the system.
There's a contradiction
there. You have a
there.
moral duty. I mean, would you take something from somebody without asking?
I'm agreeing with you.
But if you take a person who has nowhere to live for a very long time and who was denied, shelter for many times and food and that has no trust in humanity whatsoever, and all they want just a shelter and a roof above their heads, they won't ask you because they know you will say no, or they presume they will. Well, because they were disappointed so many times by the humans.
You don't keep trying.
Well,
that's like saying the Zeitgeist movement, no one's going to fucking listen to you. I can tell you the majority of people will be very anti the Zeitgeist movement by the way that it's delivered. But you don't keep trying.
got a point. We've got a point over here.
No valid question. Just an offer if anybody's hungry.
Hung up
Yes.
some
Yeah,
idea
okay,
somewhere
cool.
in your house.
So what's that?
And the thing is that I'm getting drunk as well. Because I only
You got it right.
You got it Can I just ask one little question that's sort of way off topic, but I'm just curious to ask, like, because us four have come down from Cardiff today and we're kind of involved with like the Zeitgeist movement there and stuff. I was just sort of curious as to the Bristol chapter and like how many of you guys are kind of involved with the Zeitgeist movement, how many of you here just sort of out of interest, and what is the general...
It's kind of basically what the five of us, really.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 5 regular members. I mean, we've had meetings where like 20 people turn up.
Okay.
But consistently, I'd say about 5 people.
Okay.
5, 6.
5. Which 5?
Lena, me, Justin.
So you do! She comes to the meetings!
I'm really happy.
But it's good because we need
not
different
anti.
opinions, right? Not just
Anton also.
It's good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I just don't think it's the answer.
I don't think
Well, it's good to
there's an answer.
it's good to have you come along to our meetings because you know we need. If we were just going along, oh yeah, Zeitgeist is the way
Yeah, no, it's
forward.
good to have some.
We need a different opinion because we can get a ton of vision sometimes.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
It's kind of a similar thing. I reckon there's probably about maybe, how many people would you say go regularly? About 2.
Me and rough. But he's a bit rough. So.
Very lately we have about 12 each time. Maybe
Wow. Yeah, it's probably...
If you're still going and stuff in September, come along, so
Oh,
cool.
I have it, yeah. Yeah, if you guys want to stick around and come down
Stealing some members from you.
That'd be good. We should
You have to exchange. You have to give us some.
Yeah, we'll give you Sarah. Do you want Sarah?
exchange. What, swapping Zeitgeist members, huh?
Sarah,
So I would say that there's more people sort of joining.
I'll give you
Going
to
more
move to Bristol. It's a nice place.
Soon, yeah.
I reckon it's sort of so yeah. I was just curious to know what like your sort of Bristol take on the whole thing is. Because I guess you're doing something very similar to what you're doing, just a little bit over the bridge, really.
Yeah, probably.
You
can literally walk rough.
I get it now.
They walk and stay. It's amazing. It's like
I think it was the time that we used to watch.
Yeah.
She always agrees with crazy people. They might become violent.
Is anybody interested in going for food?
Really?
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
There's a vegan
It's good to come down and talk to you all though, like, it's just like
Are you a
extension of what we've
vegan?
been dealing with.
No,
like,
but there's a
shows
vegan
all.
McDonald's around the corner.
Wait, what?
And all,
vegan McDonald's?
yeah, so all the cows there are vegan, so when you eat